campaign to suggest that things will get better when we already gave them an opportunity to do that, and things didn't get better, they got worse. And the fact is, people need to remember the facts, not what people say on commercials, and acknowledge the fact that inflation has gone down. The border crisis, which is a crisis, has significantly gone down. The economy is much stronger than it's ever been. Taxes have been held steady, and we have not increased taxes on anybody within this administration. It's a whole litany of things I can talk about this administration that have actually affirmatively happened that didn't happen when the former president, Donald Trump, was, in fact, the president. And I also want to say this. I think it is very ironic he keeps talking about what Kamala Harris hasn't done. And I've not heard him ever mention what Mike Pence did when he was vice president. Vice presidents are vice president for a reason. They're not president. She has some views, but she wasn't in control of the government, and she supported the existing president.
That was Senator Anthony Williams talking to us in Philadelphia at a voting booth. And we are also joined by an artist. And I want to quickly go to him because he's been here the entire day. Sean Durbin. He's also talking to people on the ground and then creating art from it. What are you looking at?
Well, as an artist, I'm influenced by what's around me. And I like giving people voices through my artwork. And so out here you can see an example of what's on people's minds, the reason why they're voting. And all of this is just material for in the future that's going to inspire me to create some awesome murals. And so getting it firsthand from the people, the reason why they come out here, no matter if they're 78, I actually talked to a 78-year-old woman and told me so many different stories, or people from different national backgrounds. It's important to kind of have your voice heard. And voting is one of the reasons we can actually be heard.
Yeah, and some of the things that I see here from what you're hearing is for our rights, because my community deserves better, affordable and healthcare housing, for democracy, better economy. We hear a lot about the economy, of course, for a better world. And in your opinion, who delivers this in this U.S. presidential elections?
Right now, our candidate is Kamala Harris. I think there's so many reasons why we wouldn't want to vote for Trump. I mean, just women's rights and how you're supposed to treat a woman. Just on that basis alone, he kind of cancels himself out. It's not somebody that I would have my daughter.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. We've had two amazing voices talking to us about their perspective. And from Philadelphia, and I'm handing it back to you in the studio.
Thanks very much. Let's go straight across now to my colleague Gauri Dwivedi, who's been floating around the United States, going from state to state, trying to get us the very latest information. She's in Washington right now. Go ahead, Gauri.
Thank you for that, Vishnu. And in fact, I have with me here Mr. Shekhar Narasimhan, who is the founder and chairman of AAPI Victory Fund, a super PAC that is really aimed at and focused on mobilizing voters for the Democrats. And remember, there are also a lot of races at the congressional and the Senate level. And Shekhar will talk to us on all those fronts. First of all, thank you so much, sir, for coming to this booth and speaking to NDTV.
Thank you, Gauri. We have a little bit of background. We are sitting outside a school where there's voting going on, literally, and America is finally at the polls. This will be over soon enough for all of us.
And you've been tracking these elections very closely the last couple of months. Your team has been focused on the candidates. Talk to us first about the candidates that AAPI Victory Fund is looking at closely, the races there, and then we come back to the big picture.
Absolutely. So obviously the House of Representatives is up for grabs. We have 5 candidates that we are closely tracking. There's one in Iowa, which would be a flip from a Republican to a Democratic seat, Landon Beckham. There's 2 in Orange County, California, Derek Tran, Vietnamese American, and David Min, a Korean American. And then there is an Indian American, Amish Shah, in Arizona. Good chance to flip a seat from red to blue.
What does that mean?
That means it goes from Republican column to a Democratic column.
Big picture, yes.
In the big picture, he'll be the first Jain elected, the first Indian American from Arizona. He's done the work. He was a state representative. He knows how to be bipartisan. In Arizona and states in the battlegrounds, you have to win moderate votes. You have to win votes from independents. Otherwise, you cannot win elections. So Suhas Subramaniam in Virginia, where we are sitting right now, should win his seat. It is a seat that has a majority Democratic constituency. And at the end of the day, look, all these candidates, if they win and we flip these districts, we're going to make Hakeem Jeffries the next Speaker of the House. So it's first the House, then the U.S. Senate.
Yes.
There are two critical Senate races which we have been working in. Jackie Rosen in Nevada, which is a hold, and Elisa Slotkin in Michigan, which is a hold for the Democrats, but it's an open seat because the incumbent retired. That will depend more heavily on the presidential. If turnout in the presidential is high, if more Democrats come out to vote generally it works two ways.
I was going to ask you just this, that we are sitting here at a polling booth. What does this mean, the turnout that is coming in? What does it mean for the presidential election and, of course, these specific races that you pointed out?
So turnout is an interesting thing, and I would urge that people not look at anecdotes, because you get all these pictures of showing long lines and it's the biggest turnout. We don't know. One precinct can have a Republican majority, turnout can be high, and it can vote for a Democrat, and vice versa. So turnout just because of lines isn't the issue, but here's the facts. Of the roughly 225 million Americans eligible to vote, 80 million have already voted. They voted early, they voted through mail. So that means realistically we should get another 80 million who vote. So that could be 160 million voters. Last time, 2020, where it was almost all mail balloting because of COVID, we had 151. So this could be the largest turnout in American history. Generally, Gauri, it favors Democrats. But there is no guarantee of that because like in 2016, Donald Trump turned out low propensity rural white voters who hadn't voted before. So we're not taking anything for granted. We have 1.1 million volunteers and staff in the field. By the way, just in the 7 battleground states.
Just in the 7 battlegrounds. Very quickly, I have to hand it back to Vishnu in the studio to continue the conversation. Very quickly, sir, I want to ask you, it's still about a couple of hours that, polling has started. You've been talking to your volunteers, your organization. What are they telling in terms of getting your voters out to vote?
Michigan, heavy turnout. They're calling everybody who submitted and received an absentee ballot, has not yet sent it, and saying, what happened? You can still fill it out and bring it in and drop it in the mailbox, in the poll box. Don't hesitate to come out right now. Do you need a ride to come out? So we're working Michigan and Georgia, and we are seeing a heavy surge in the Indian American turnout. Bottom line, I think Indian Americans are going to turn out, and I think 70% are going to vote for Kamala Harris.
There you heard it, Vishnu. Very important insight. 70% of Indian American voters will vote this time. Record voting set to happen this time. And Michigan and Georgia, really the key states to watch out for. Back to you in the studio.
Gauri, thank you very much. Well, a little while earlier on, I spoke to Carl Bildt, the former Prime Minister of Sweden and co-chair of the European Council on Foreign Relations. Remember, this is an election that the entire world is watching. The foreign policy impact of this will be huge. The elections in the United States are being watched not just in the US, but around the world. American foreign policy impacts different parts of the world in profound ways. Joining us now, a very special guest. Carl Bildt is co-chair of the European Council on Foreign Affairs. He's also a former Prime Minister of Sweden. Mr. Bildt, wonderful speaking to you. Thank you very much for being with us.
Wonderful to be with you.
Is there a real concern, Mr. Bildt, in Europe that if Donald Trump comes to power, that funding, US funding for the war in Ukraine might come to an end?
There are serious concerns, I would say, on two different aspects of Trump policies. One is the one that you mentioned, the American commitment to the security of Europe, where defense of Ukraine at the moment is the most acute issue, but there are wider issues associated with that. And then there's concern with his trade policies. We are dependent upon foreign trade and open global economy, and we have no interest in global trade wars of the sort that his policies might lead to.
But let's talk a little bit more about Ukraine. I was in Kiev about a month and a half back, and I asked President Zelensky this question, saying that if Trump comes to power, how would things change? Because the war is in a critical phase. And he seemed to suggest that in his personal conversations with Trump, there wasn't anything evident immediately that that might be the case. Do you therefore believe that that could essentially be rhetoric leading up to these elections, that in terms of support for Ukraine may not necessarily end?
I think it will be very difficult for the United States to abandon Ukraine completely, because that will be seen as a sort of defeat for the US, a defeat for the West, and it will have profound security policy implications for Europe. That being said, there is no question that I have been skeptical of the US part of aid for Ukraine. And the US aid has been important, primarily on the military side. If you take the overall support for Ukraine, it is, of course, overwhelmingly European, but also other global partners. Japan has been important, for example. But the US has been important, and a decline in that support will be a substantial setback, no question.
Let's flip that question around and look at Kamala Harris. What does she potentially bring Europe?
Well, continuity, I would say. She would, in that sense, be a continuation of the policies that we've seen. She's committed to the security cooperation transatlantic. She's been coming to Europe a number of times, giving speeches of that content. That includes Ukraine and the policies associated with that. She's, of course, part of the drift that we've seen in US policies for quite some time in a slightly more protectionist direction. The Biden administration didn't undo a number of the protectionist measures that Trump one did. So from that point of view, yep, it's not going to be a worsening of the situation, but no distinct improvement either, I fear.
You mentioned briefly about the potential for trade disagreements. I mean, there have been many trade disagreements between Europe and the United States. What specifically are your concerns? Should there be, for example, a Trump administration, or should Kamala Harris come to power?
Well, I mean, what he talks about, I mean, remains to be seen. What happened if it was to be him that's an ex-president? He said it's going to be a 10% tariff on all imports. That's a ban on all global trade affecting the United States. That includes Europe, that includes India. He said it's going to be 60% on everything coming from China. And the likelihood is, of course, that both the Europeans and the Chinese and others will retaliate. And then we are in a situation, there's been calculation done by different institutes, that will have a significant negative effect on global trade, and accordingly on global growth perspectives, affecting primarily the global south, by the way, apart from driving inflation in the US and other parts. So no question, his trade policies, which he claims are America first in the sense that they don't take into account at all the negative effects for the world as a whole.
I just want to revisit the question on Ukraine from a slightly different standpoint. Now, Trump does say that he has an equation with the Russian president. Nobody internationally, very few players are actually speaking to him. Prime Minister Modi is, of course, speaking to both Ukraine and Russia. But in terms of a US outreach to President Putin directly, do you not believe that that might be more feasible if it comes through Donald Trump, given the equation that he's had?
Not necessarily. I think we know fairly well what President Trump is intending to do, and I think he's told also Prime Minister Modi that he is in no mood for any ceasefire. He said that the only ceasefire that he can contemplate, and he said that both publicly and privately to people who'd be visiting him, is a ceasefire where Ukraine agrees to capitulate more or less on some of his key demands. That's the mood that he's in. Can President Trump change that? I doubt it. I think President Putin will see a Trump presidency as an opportunity to pursue that particular agenda. Then, of course, what will the Ukrainians do? Well, it's the Ukrainians who are fighting for their country. It's not the Americans that are fighting. It's the Ukrainians that are fighting. So it will be a very difficult situation if he were to entertain agreeing to the Putin demands.
How do you assess the situation on the ground in Ukraine right now? Because just in the last couple of days, we've seen, two reports. One, Russia continuing to gain ground, albeit in small areas, small pockets, of course, at the loss of a great deal of lives. But a real concern on how long Ukraine can actually sustain this. Because while Ukraine does have the support of the West presently, there is a concern over manpower available if this war stretches longer. Would you share that assessment on the ground situation?
I do share that assessment. I mean, the front line has been sort of overall fairly stable. As you noticed, there have been, first there were in the late summer, there were significant Ukrainian advances in Kursk. There's been Russian advances in the last few weeks. But essentially, the Russians are holding roughly 70% of the territory of Ukraine. That has not changed really for the last 2 years or something like that. The manpower situation is what is most concerning from the Ukraine point of view. They're also dependent upon ammunition and help they are getting from the West in different ways, but that seems to be less of a concern at the moment. Manpower, soldiers is a concern. They are mobilizing. But of course, it's a country of whatever they are, 30, 40 million versus 140 million. So the manpower potential is limited. Also, Russia has significant problems with manpower. Yes. They've had to pay a lot of money to get to replenish the front lines. They are losing sort of, the latest is that they're losing 1,100, 1,200, 1,300 people a day. So they need to recruit that number to stay stable. And then we have the North Koreans coming into the situation suddenly. Yeah.
Mr. Will, the other war, of course, is West Asia. Israel, you know, the war in Lebanon that's taking place, Iran, you know, against Israel at this stage. How do you assess potentially the policies of Kamala Harris and Trump should they come to power?
I think there are very different approaches. I think Kamala Harris, I think, is highly likely that she would continue to pursue as a long-term solution a two-state solution with Israel-Palestine. I consider that the only viable long-term solution, difficult as it is to achieve that. Trump, more uncertain. I think he was disengaged from the Middle East or West Asia. But at the same time, he has been, during Trump 1 period, he had been sort of fairly tolerant towards Israeli land acquisition, illegal land acquisition. So he would be more likely to go along with some of the more aggressive plans of Prime Minister Netanyahu. That's the way it looks if you listen to the rhetoric of the different contenders. Then Iran comes into the picture. And it looks like Iran is now planning some sort of counter-strike. It strikes, counter-strikes, strikes, counter-strikes. Between Israel and Iran, that would be most unfortunate. What is really needed is a ceasefire in Gaza, where the situation is catastrophic from the humanitarian point of view.
It's time to play high-low. Go higher or lower with Grosvenor's free daily game, with thousands of prizes to be won when you call it right. Download the app or play online.
Sometimes it takes someone who really knows you to make you feel seen.
Gifts that say I get you. Etsy has it.
At Hidden Hearing, we know hearing is essential for allowing you to keep being you. That's why, for a limited time, get up to £2,000 for your old or broken hearing aids when you trade them in for our top-of-the-range ones. Hidden Hearing are one of the UK's largest hearing care specialists with nationwide coverage. Visit hiddenhearing.co.uk to book your free hearing test and get up to £2,000 towards your new hearing aids now. Hidden Hearing. Your hearing is our expertise.
A lot of banks will let you open bank accounts, put some cash away into a fixed deposit account, or open an ISA online with a few clicks. But very few have branches that you can walk into and talk to someone without an appointment.
But there are only some banks which have been serving you for more than 100 years in the UK to do all this.
That bank is SBI UK,
a Fortune 500 financial institution offering technology-driven banking solutions with a human touch. SBI UK, the bank with a global reach.
With conflicts on the rise around the world, all too often, children are caught up in the violence.
This is like nothing I've seen before. We've got children who've suffered injuries in the most horrendous circumstances.
£5 a month can help provide life-saving medical care for children with blast injuries like Ahmed. It can also give mothers a safe place to give birth.
Lana's the first baby born at Save the Children's Emergency Maternity Ward in Gaza. Access to safe delivery is absolutely vital, especially during conflict. We just urgently need your help to give newborns like Lana the best possible start in life.
No child should have their lives destroyed by conflict. Please search Save the Children or visit savethechildren.org.uk and give £5 a month to help more children like baby Lana today and for as long as they need us.
I'm starting to notice a trend in your stories and the way you talk about yourself. You expect to disappoint people, and then when you do a good job, like at work today, you don't let yourself enjoy it or accept any praise. You've come so far. Maybe it's time to start giving yourself some of the credit.
I'll do the travel arrangements this time.
Okay, just call Southall Travel.
I've got this.
When you try to make travel arrangements yourself, things can get complicated. With multiple airlines, hotels, and booking sites, the choice can be overwhelming. Trying to fit everything together can drive you up the wall.
I give up.
Hello, Southall Travel. Southall Travel can help you arrange flights and package holidays anywhere in the world. Call us 24/7 for the best prices and impartial advice. Done.
I'll do the packing.
Don't you have watchdog lock? No! What's that? Don't be a victim yet. Get watchdogs, 3-star solid secure diamond locks. They are anti-pick, anti-snap, anti-bump. बोले तो fully anti-chore. जब तक जोड़ेंगे नहीं, तब तक छोड़ेंगे नहीं.
With Virgin Media, get smooth, lightning-fast M125 broadband. Just £25 a month and no setup fee. And now it's even easier to switch to the provider awarded best broadband experience. Yeah, that's smooth. Virgin Media. See what you can do. Visit virginmedia.com.
Visit pandabingo.com for a fantastic range of bingo games all in one place. It's Bingo Pandemonium at pandabingo.com.
From interesting tech startups to industry-leading companies, politics, sports, culture, curry, cricket. Oh, there's so much to talk about. Like me, if you too thrive on interesting conversations, this is a show you cannot miss. Watch this space to know more about all matters and all people that make Britain what it is today. Out of Britain, with me, Radhika Iyer.
Hello everyone, this is The Last Word and I'm Maria Shakil. Not all privately owned properties qualify as community resources that the state can take over for the common good. That's what the Supreme Court today has said in a landmark verdict. It was a 9-judge constitution bench led by Chief Justice of India D.Y. Chandrachud that delivered the judgment on this vexed issue with an 8-1 majority. 3 judgments were authored. The Chief Justice, in fact, wrote one of them himself, and also for his 6 colleagues, Justice B.V. Nagaratna wrote a concurrent one. But a separate judgment was written by Justice Sudhanshu Dhulia, who dissented. The case relates to Article 31C of the Constitution that protects laws made by the state to fulfill directive principles of state policy, which are the guidelines the Constitution lays down for governments to follow while making laws and policies. And among the laws that Article 31C protects is Article 39B. Now you will ask, what is Article 39B? Article 39B lays down that the state shall direct its policy towards ensuring that the ownership and control of the material resources of the community are so distributed as best to subserve the common good. Remember, in 1977, a 7-judge bench had ruled with a 4-3 majority that all privately owned property did not fall within the ambit of material resources of the community. In a minority opinion then, Justice Krishna Iyer held that both public and private resources fell within the ambit of material resources of the community under Article 39B. So what does today's judgment mean for you and me? Talking about the big highlights of it is Kapil Sankla, who is here to decode the verdict for us. Advocate Kapil Sankla, thank you so much for speaking to NDTV. Help us understand, what does it mean for you and I, for citizens?
What happens when the government acquires the land or takes over your property and then says that, all right, not me, but why? Because this is what public-private partnerships are all about. Will give the money to you, but does not give the money to you. Then you will be fighting on two fronts. You will actually be fighting against a private party, which is unfair, right? The second aspect, what is fair compensation? Because what could be fair for the government is not fair for you. So whether the compensation will be what is the current market rate or the government's rate as per its whims and fancies. And thirdly, most importantly, you see, this is also what Justice Chandrachud and the majority bench stated, that there was a particular view, which also was of Justice Iyer's view, which was predominantly a socialistic view, saying that all assets are common pool, the government can take over anything because it actually belongs to the government. But this view over the years have been whittled down. And now we actually belong to a society which is a very open society, a very cosmopolitan society, a very capitalist society where it is okay to make money, it is okay to show off your wealth, it is okay to to create assets, etc. Now, what would happen to a private party who's created those assets but cannot distribute it amongst his own children or grandchildren? That would be unfair to the person itself. And therefore, what the Supreme Court has stated, that the directive principles, and just to digress, the first part of it is this, that the right to property was our fundamental right, is no longer our fundamental right, it's a constitutional right. So it's been downgraded. Having been downgraded, the Honorable Supreme Court has still protected it in a number of judgments. What the Maharashtra government was saying is that there are directive principles which are a part of the constitution. In terms of the directive principles, we can take over anybody's land. These are material resources because this is for common good. But the Honorable Supreme Court rightly stated, and stated in terms of the Keshwananda Bharati judgment, which is supposed to be the Kohinoor of our, the constitutional law, 13-bench judgment, which basically stated that there are two parts of the constitution, one that can be changed, and the second is the basic framework that cannot be changed. And that itself is very important, that even the directive principles or the legislature cannot really create something to change the fundamental rights or the fundamental part of the Constitution of India. And one of the fundamental parts is this, albeit I said it is not your fundamental right, but a constitutional right, that only in certain circumstances, and those circumstances would have very heavy checks and balances, very heavy checks and balances, only under exceptional circumstances where it is shown by cogent reasoning that a certain land bank or a parcel is required for the government for common good, no property can be taken away. And that, in my view, is the right view.
Okay. Mr. Sankla, for a family or a group of people who are challenging their land being taken away by the court, by the government, for them, this larger good definition now under scrutiny or clarity emerging over it, what does it mean for them after today's judgment?
So, to answer that, we go back to 39B, which is the crux of what the government's argument was, stating that, and I'm paraphrasing, that the state can, in particular, in the directive policy, can create a policy that the ownership and control of the material resources of the community, and as I said, the catchword is material resources of the community, are so distributed as best to subserve the common good. The main contention was whether the term material resource under the Article 39B can be interpreted to mean any resources capable of generating wealth. And the Honorable Supreme Court has stated no, it cannot be. It can only be under exceptional circumstances. So not only we revert back to the previous position that the land acquisition can only be for particular purposes, those purposes have to be shown by the government, and there has to be fair compensation. And the second part of it is that not every land is a material resource. So therefore, as I stated, your assets, your land bank is safe unless the government shows by particular reasoning that a particular land bank is required. For example, to create a highway. For example, there is a forest, and the forest is required to be taken over by the government because of its unique flora and fauna, or certain other reasons. But those reasons are exception to the rule. Your assets are not material resources under 39B, which is very, very clear, which the Honorable Supreme Court has stated, and also stated that Justice Iyer's judgment, which was more socialist in nature, they did not, of course, say that. Justice Iyer's judgment, which was more socialist in nature, saying that every land, every parcel belongs to the government has first right, is not the right view, which basically concludes your land is your land unless exception shown. Not every land is material resource. The government cannot take over your land. And if it does, it has those checks and balances which have been held by the Honorable Supreme Court in plethora of judgments, including pertaining to land acquisition, including pertaining to disclosure of the reasoning why the land is required, and that you can challenge the setback before the Honorable Supreme Court or before the High Court, as the case may be.
All right, Kapil Sankla, I appreciate your time. Thank you for breaking down that crucial judgment for us. Let me also bring in other panelists now. Puneet Mittal is a senior advocate of the Supreme Court. We also have Declina Calden, who is someone who is a petitioner also in the land acquisition case. Mr. Mittal, I want to understand from you, because this is a judgment which will have long-term implication. And what is becoming clear here is that citizen is supreme, and the government cannot really dictate beyond a point. But at the same time, there is that distinction which is being made about what was seen as mindless state control.
So thank you, Maria, for having me over at the start. And what has actually been done is Article 39B has been interpreted by the Supreme Court. And the phrase which was there is material resources of the community has been taken note of. And when it says material resources, it of course includes everything, but then it says there's two classification to it. And one is that the community, it has to be a community resource. So the purpose of community usage, if it is a resource, then of course it can be taken off, but a private property of a personal nature, no. Now, for instance, I'll give you an example. Let's say mineral and mines, or let's say oil and natural gas, or electricity, petroleum. I'm just giving you, it's a non-exhaustive list, but I'm just giving you certain examples. Now, in such areas where private control or private dominance may not be in the interest of community, that is where the government is permitted in 39B, Article 39B, to take over those assets. But individual assets, which are not scarce in that sense in nature, is the government would not have a say in it for the purpose of takeover.
This landmark judgment has overruled a judgment which was given 5 decades back in the Indira Gandhi nationalization inspired era. So there is a shift in policy which is also being initiated with this judgment.
See, this judgment actually, to be very fair, has only decided a reference. And actually the issue with regard to acquisition of property, because this arose from Maharashtra, and this arose about the properties prior to 1st of September 1940. And it was a peculiar case because 16,000 properties were in dilapidated state and they were dangerous. And they were not being able to protect the properties, and it was dangerous to live into those properties. Now that issue, whether that acquisition was correct or not, is going to be decided by the appropriate bench. Now it is only decided with respect to implication of 39B of the Constitution of India, nothing more. Now, as far as the nationalization bit is concerned, if you look at it, as I said, and I'm repeating it, when we look at those assets, which I mentioned a little while back, those assets are of community importance. Those assets, if come into private control and which are scarce in nature, that is where the government is coming into play. That is where the acquisition is considered to be correct, but not in any other case. Not in cases where private houses are there per se, where people are residing into and using it for personal use, and no community purpose is being served, or distribution of those assets are not serving any community purpose. that is not covered by 39B. That is what the Supreme Court.
Okay, so let me bring in Dikila again, and if you can hear me now, my question is, as someone who is a petitioner in a land acquisition case, how do you look at today's judgment?
My land acquisition case happened in 2010. That was before the new LAR acquisition happened. All right. So when we approached the court, we did not want to part with our land. This is from my father's maternal side, ancestral property. So we were not ready to part with the land, being a tribal, community from the state of Sikkim. If this today's verdict was there then, maybe the forceful acquisition would not have taken place, and we would have been heard, and a proper process would have been followed, instead of the land acquisition commission, the district collector, following left, right, and center, the acquisition sections, and then acquiring the property and giving to a hydropower project when there are already, I think, 29 hydro projects sanctioned in the state of Sikkim. And if we were given a chance to hear, maybe things would have taken a better course. And
okay, Dikila,
I feel like
and what about the compensation? Because we have often seen that in most of these cases, the compensation is also not timely.
Yes, sadly, when a government acquires the land, in my case, when the acquisition took place, our market rate is 30 rupees per square feet, which right now, after fighting for 15 years, it has increased to 95 rupees. And in today's time, I don't think, you even get a handkerchief with that amount, and you're talking about a land. So compensation, well, we haven't received compensation as such, because this is the third time we got an order from the Supreme Court, and the private company was supposed to pay the first installment by 31st of October, and they still haven't paid the installment. So compensation is, I think, we're still trying to.
Okay, so Puneet, I've just enough time for you. You heard a case study of this nature, and there would be countless such land acquisition petitioners all across India. My question to you is, does it really apply retrospectively?
No, so is that question?
Yes, Puneet, that's for you. That's for you.
So, insofar as the compensation part is concerned, actually, that's an administrative exercise carried by the land acquisition director. Now, there is a procedure prescribed therein that if you're not satisfied with the compensation which you're getting, you have a process of appealing, and of course, if you're not getting the compensation on time, then you have a process of executing and approaching the court and so on and so forth. So, compensation, I mean, how many years back that you got, you still have a remedy against the quantum of compensation that you've got and the government has awarded. So it's certainly an appealable process for which you will have, of course, have to approach the court.
All right. So thank you so much for joining us, Puneet Mittal there, and Dikila Calden for sharing your story. Let's try and understand the economic implication of this judgment of the Supreme Court today. We have economist Gurcharan Das joining us on the last word now. Sir, thank you so much. As someone who is an economist and also a policy analyst, how do you look at today's judgment, and do you think it makes a distinction between what was seen as a welfare state versus socialism, or a distinction is being made between a welfare state as opposed to some kind of a Robin Hood style economics?
Right. Well, it's clearly the Supreme Court judgment on private property is a landmark judgment. It's an 8-1, a 9 bench judgment. And overall, it strengthens the fundamental pillar of classical liberalism and the market economy rather than a socialist or communist economy. And it's a major ideological change, uh, a change that had begun in our country from 1991 onwards. And there have been sort of judgments, minor judgments, which have come along the way where the judges have interpreted in this manner. But now that it's up here in a big judgment of the Supreme Court, I think what it does is that the state now cannot seize a person's private property. Before, private property had been a fundamental right. Then, during the Indira Gandhi period and a judgment like Krishna Iyer's, it had really been reduced to a constitutional right. Now we have restored it back to a fundamental right. And as I was saying, the state will have to have the onus will be on the state, the burden of proof, rather than on the citizen for taking over a property. I mean, it's still, if there's a road to be built and your house is right smack in the middle of the road, the state will be able to take it, but they'll have to go through a process. They'll have to prove that it cannot be, it has to go only from this point to this point, and they cannot go around your house. But what it does is, so it won't stop acquisition for the public good, but it just adds now they'll have to definitely pay market compensation. If the government, before, they used to expropriate property without full compensation. So it's actually a very big a big mental change, a mindset change. And as I said, that the idea of during Indira Gandhi's time, when this interpretation was on, in fact, it was the first cases were really during Nehru's period, when they wanted land acquisition it was against zamindari, and people accepted, big zamindari lands, etc. And so there wasn't a lot of hullabaloo. But now, over time, people realized that even the poor have a home, a property, and you can't just take it away. It's not just the rich. So the reality is, frankly, that the classical liberal in me is delighted. And frankly, now, I think the other mischief they did during Indira Gandhi's time, which was to insert socialism into the constitution. It wasn't there originally. They inserted so then let's hope there'll be a judgment which will remove socialism.
Okay, Gurcharan Das, there is one reading of this judgment that it is trying to understand what is private resources of individuals, and can that be taken for a purpose of redistribution? How do you view it?
Well, exactly. That before, the state didn't particularly make any distinction. That the principle under the Justice Krishna judgment was that all property of all individuals ultimately belongs to society. And therefore, the society or the government has a right on it. And this was against that collectivist mentality, the communitarian mentality of Marxism. Now what will happen is that there will be a lot more burden of proof on the state to prove that this particular piece of property that you are taking away from me, that is truly needed for a public purpose, and they will have to, it'll be, as I said, the burden of proof will fall today. It's the long-term implications of this. I mean, in immediate terms, as I said, I'm not sure it'll have a great impact, because for the last 30 years, since 91, India has been moving, and judges have also been moving. So in practical terms, you're not going to have any immediate impact. But what it means is that we have finally broken with the old communist, Marxist, socialist ideals, which were very powerful and which still prevail in the bureaucracy, amongst the people, because no one has, frankly, unlike in UK, in the US, in China even, Deng Xiaoping sold the reforms, the market. Margaret Thatcher used to spend 80% of her time selling the reforms and only 20% doing the reforms. And similarly, Ronald Reagan. So the market is not an easy thing, to sell. The reason is, and that's why Adam Smith called it an invisible hand. The reason is that millions of people working for their own profit ultimately lead to society's lot improving. And it's not an easy thing to understand how that is. It's a what he called the invisible hand. And no politician in India, that's our big failure. No politician, Manmohan Singh, Narasimha Rao, Vajpayee, all these people did great reforms, but they have not sold them. Mr. Modi, he hasn't gone and sold reforms to the people. So people don't know, the bureaucracy doesn't know, and so the fact is that this is, I hope that this judgment will at least start a debate in the country.
Okay. Gurcharan Das, my last question to you, sir. The government of West Bengal had also supported the arguments of Union of India and also Maharashtra. Do you think states are increasingly realizing that this is the way forward?
Yes, I mean, you're absolutely right. Kerala and West Bengal, still very large, because they were Marxist-run governments. People have not yet understood the importance that you can't have a Marxist, communist type economy, a command economy in a democracy. And if you want to remain democratic, then you have to give economic freedom to the people. And this means private property has sanctity. And that's the fundamental idea in the system. And even a poor person has a shirt on his back. And that shirt, you can't just take away his shirt. It's his property. So everybody has property. This is just a basic respect for the human freedom.
Yes, absolutely. I think it's the individual rights that has won today. So thank you so much, Gurcharan Das, for breaking that down for us, for decoding this entire Supreme Court judgment, which is certainly being seen as historic and landmark in many ways. That's all from me. We are putting out this entire discussion on ndtv.com. Thanks so much for watching.
Did you know Experian is the UK's most trusted credit score? You can download the app for free. Easy peasy. Before you do credit, do Experian first.
When you're setting up a new nest, starting your own flock, or they just keep on growing, get the flexibility you need with VeryPay. Pay now, pay later, or pay over 3 months and pay no interest. We'll even send you helpful payment reminders. Shop the online store for fashion, home and more. VeryPay. Ways to pay that work your way.
With Virgin Media, get smooth, lightning-fast M125 broadband. Just £25 a month and no setup fee. And now it's even easier to switch to the provider awarded Best Broadband Experience. Yeah, that's smooth. Virgin Media. See what you can do. Visit virginmedia.com.
There's something new in Lottoland. Get set for a welcome offer. Stake £20 on Big Bass Bonanza and get 100 free spins at Lottoland Casino.
Actually kidding me? You weren't supposed to burn the potatoes or invite everyone round at 2.
It's 3 o'clock, right?
We weren't supposed to do presents this year.
I can't even be mad at you now, can I?
And you weren't supposed to take everyone home again. We weren't supposed to have our Beth either. We weren't supposed to get married. And you weren't supposed to be here. But you are, thanks to the best gift you ever got. And mine is still having you.
To help us fund life-saving research, donate £5, £10 or £20. Text 5, 10 or 20 to 70499.
I've been thinking, I want to plan my funeral so it feels more like a celebration. My parents always said I was born dancing. I just love it. Bhangra, disco, even line dancing. So when my time comes, I want to have music, dancing, the lot.
With over 150 years' experience, you can count on Co-op Funeral Care to help you pre-plan the funeral you want. To find out more, visit Co-op Funeral Care or give us a call.
Imagine the beauty and mystery of India, the magic of Pakistan, the excitement of Dubai, the spirit of the Far East, and the fun of the USA. Call Southall Travel 24 hours a day for the best prices and impartial advice on flights and holidays. Discover the hidden gems worldwide just waiting to be explored by you. Call 0333 300 3000. Southall Travel, the future of travel.
Get watchdogs, 3-star snap secure diamond locks. जब तक जोड़ेंगे नहीं, तब तक छोड़ेंगे नहीं.
Family life. It's made of ups and downs, and those little moments. But should the unthinkable happen to you? Life insurance from Legal & General can help look after monthly bills, the roof over their heads, childcare costs, and most importantly, your family. Because no one protects more families in the UK than us. Premiums start from £5 a month and they never rise. Plus there's a £120 gift card after you apply. Legal & General. Ensure life goes on.
This is NDTV, and you're watching NDTV 24/7.
Voting is underway in the United States for the 47th president. Will it be Democrat nominee and Vice President Kamala Harris or Republican nominee and former US President Donald Trump? The results may actually take days. Watch our special coverage on NDTV 24/7. Born of an Indian mother, will Kamala Harris create history as the first woman US president? Special prayers are offered at Harris's mother's ancestral village in Tamil Nadu, where she embodies women empowerment. Not all privately owned properties qualify as community resources that the state can take over for the common good, the Supreme Court said in a landmark verdict today, which could impact property ownership at large. As Delhi's air pollution worsens, the Environment Minister Gopal Rai chairs an emergency meeting. He says there will be a campaign against outdoor burning. He also says that they want permission for artificial rain. And in a significant step towards India's vision of becoming a sports powerhouse, the Indian Olympic Association has formally sent a letter to IOC expressing India's interest to host Olympics 2036. Hello and welcome. It's election day in the United States and people are lining up to cast their votes. This after months of intense campaigning by Democratic nominee Kamala Harris and her Republican challenger Donald Trump. Most analysts are calling it a very tight race. Various polls have predicted a neck-and-neck contest which brings the focus on the swing states to decide the fate of this presidential election. Donald Trump earlier today, after casting his vote, spoke to the press and this is what he had to say.
No, I feel very confident. I have felt, we went in with a very big lead today and it looks like Republicans have shown up in force. So we'll see how it turns out, but it seems that they have really shown up in force. I just got a call from Dan Patrick in Texas. He said they've never seen anything like it. Look, I ran a great campaign. I think it was maybe the best of the three. We did great in the first one. We did much better in the second one, but something happened. And this was the best, I would say this was the best campaign we ran.
The former Swedish PM spoke to my colleague Vishnu Shom on Trump and Harris's policies and what US polls mean for Russia-Ukraine war. Listen in.
Joining us now, a very special guest. Carl Bildt is co-chair of the European Council on Foreign Affairs. He's also a former Prime Minister of Sweden. Mr. Bildt, wonderful speaking to you. Thank you very much for being with us.
Wonderful to be with you.
Is there a real concern, Mr. Bildt, in Europe that if Donald Trump comes to power, that funding, US funding for the war in Ukraine might come to an end?
There are serious concerns, I would say, on two different aspects of Trump policies. One is the one that you mentioned, the American commitment to the security of Europe, where defense of Ukraine at the moment is the most acute issue, but there are wider issues associated with that. And then there is concern with his trade policies. We are dependent upon foreign trade and open global economy, and we have no interest in global trade wars of the sort that his policies might lead to.
But let's talk a little bit more about Ukraine. I was in Kiev about a month and a half back, and I asked President Zelensky this question, saying that if Trump comes to power, how would things change? Because the war is in a critical phase. And he seemed to suggest that in his personal conversations with Trump, there wasn't anything evident immediately that that might be the case. Do you therefore believe that that could essentially be rhetoric leading up to these elections, that in terms of support for Ukraine may not necessarily end?
I think it will be very difficult for the United States to abandon Ukraine completely, because that will be seen as a sort of defeat for the US, a defeat for the West, and it will have profound security policy implications for Europe. That being said, there is no question that I have been skeptical of the US part of aid for Ukraine. And the US aid has been important primarily on the military side. If you take the overall support for Ukraine, it is of course overwhelmingly European, but also other global partners. Japan has been important, for example. But the US has been important, and a decline in that support will be a substantial setback, no question.
Now, all eyes are on the great American battle that's going on right now. Ami Bera, the longest-serving Indian-American congressman in the House of Representatives, earlier today spoke to my colleague Maria Shakil. Listen in. Ami Bera, who is the longest-serving Indian-American congressman in the House of Representatives, is joining us. Mr. Bera, thank you so much. Congressman, it's almost certain that you will win California's 6th district. So should I be congratulating you now or wait for the results?
We always want to wait for the results, but I feel pretty confident about where we are.
Okay, so tell me, what have you really worked out that is giving you this confidence? Of course, given your experience and how close this election is turning out to be.
Now, obviously, for my race, I have a better district and an easier district. But at the top of the ticket with the presidential campaign, having gone to some of the states that are being contested, I think Vice President Harris is in a good position. But now it's just about the field campaign, getting people to vote and cast their ballots. And I think that's a place that we do it better than the Republicans. So cautiously optimistic, but this will be a close race at the presidential level.
Okay, actually you have put it rather well that it has to be cautiously optimistic at this stage. But Congressman, this is your 6th consecutive term, and if you win, and you are also the senior most and the longest serving Indian American congressman in the House of Representatives. So that certainly is a rare feat.
It is. So that's the longest tenure in United States history. What we affectionately call ourselves as a Samosa caucus. I think all 5 members will get reelected, and potentially, we'll add another Indian American in Virginia as well as Arizona. So you might see the Samosa caucus go to 7 members.
Now, as America votes in US, here in India, there were special prayers at a temple in Tamil Nadu for the family deity of Kamala Harris's mother, where prayers were offered for her victory. Born of an Indian mother who went to US, will Kamala Harris create history as the first woman US president is the big question.
The US presidential polls has a special resonance at the Tulasendrapuram village in rural southern Tamil Nadu. While it may not make an impact to presidential candidate Kamala Harris's chances, these special pujas at the local temple for the family deity of Kamala Harris were offered to pray for her victory. This is her maternal grandfather P.V. Gopalan's village, and Kamala's name remains engraved on the temple wall for her donation for renovation years ago. Arulmoli, the block's woman representative, is the one organizing the puja power for the presidential contender.
பெண் அப்படின்னா வீட்டை விட்டு வெளில வர்றதே ஒரு சாத்தியமான விஷயத்தில் அமெரிக்காவில் துணை ஜனாதிபதி ஆனாங்க ஜனாதிபதி வேட்பாளர் அறிவிச்சிருக்காங்க அப்படின்னா எல்லா ஒட்டுமொத்த பெண்களுக்கு சந்தோஷம், ஒரு ரோல் மாடல், அடுத்த ஸ்டேஜுக்கு போகிறதுக்கான ஒரு இதுதான் அவங்க கண்டிப்பாக ஜெயிக்கணும், அவங்க ஜெயிச்சே ஆகணும்.
This inspire all the girls, ladies to become a president, to do administrate the rule the country.
A poster in the village celebrates the vice president as their proud daughter. Today, 2 American women supporters of Kamala join the villagers rooting for her victory.
As women, how important for the US to have a Madam President?
It's time. It's more than time. It's time for kindness, and it's time for democracy, and it's time for a woman. Yes.
Thousands of miles away from the US, hearts beat here yet again for Kamala at the ancestral village of her grandfather Gopalan, who had a tremendous impact on her. It's a beautiful, inexplicable bonding, and people here hope Kamala would set history. At Tulasendrapuram with Suresh, Sam Daniel, Find It TV.
One of the only things that Democrats and Republicans agree on is they are calling this election existential, that it is absolutely critical and the future of the country depends on the outcome. And I am in the swing state of Georgia, one of the 7 states that's really going to determine whether Kamala Harris or Donald Trump becomes president next January. And I'm in a particularly interesting county called Gwinnett County, just to the northeast of the city of Atlanta. This is one of the most diverse counties in the southeastern United States, and it's a bit of a litmus test, a microcosm of the United States. And we expect that the results that'll come out of here after the polls close will give us an early indication of who's going to win the election. Now, The background here might look familiar to a lot of viewers in India because not only schools and libraries are being used as polling places, but also houses of worship. And I'm actually at a Hindu temple in Gwinnett County. That is one of the polling places today. Well, Pennsylvania is the most critical because it has 19 electoral votes and you need 270 to clinch victory for the presidency. Georgia here has 16, as does North Carolina. So Pennsylvania is considered the most critical. Georgia, also very, very important. North Carolina is expected to go for the Republicans and Donald Trump. If Kamala Harris wins in North Carolina, that will be considered an upset. If she's able to take what's called the blue wall in the northeastern United States, Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin, then she's expected to get to that 270 electoral votes. And the other two states that are really in play are the two Sunbelt states of Arizona and Nevada, but they have much fewer electoral votes. And, you know, every poll we've seen for weeks and weeks has shown whether Trump is up 1 or Kamala Harris is up 1 or 2, that's all within the margin of error of the polls, which is usually 3.5%. So all the major polls are saying that this has been virtually tied coming into election day.
For that, a quick break on the show. More on the other side. Stay tuned.
We know travel can be confusing. That's why I use travelup.com. You can upgrade your seat, one way or return, increase your baggage allowance, filter by flight time, journey duration, and customer rating. And while you're away, TravelUp has you covered. From weather updates and on-demand taxi services to event and excursion tickets, all at your fingertips. Book now on travelup.com or call 0207 580 5000. TravelUp, flights, hotels, holidays.
People love to find me, but me, I love finding the perfect gift. Like for my friend Wenda, who loves coffee.
Gifts delivered on time or your money back. Etsy has it. Make time for Time Out. Grosvenor Casinos. Please gamble responsibly.
There once was a tree lovingly made to look so real, it created real memories. balsamhill.co.uk.
I urgently need to ask for your help on behalf of animals at risk right now. With the pandemic came a surge in pet ownership. And sadly, we're now seeing a serious rise in neglect, cruelty, and abuse. Our services are being stretched to the limit. To make matters worse, our costs are soaring too. But we refuse to let animals suffer. So please, act now to help rescue the growing number of animals who've never needed us more. Please call or text the number on screen now to give £2 a month to the RSPCA. In one of the toughest times we have ever experienced, your gift will make all the difference to animals. You could help provide more life-saving treatment, food, shelter, and the loving care that many have never known. We know there are millions of you who, like us, care deeply and won't stand by while animals are suffering. We have to reach those trapped in a life of abuse and neglect before it's too late. Because for many, the RSPCA is their only hope. But we can only come to the rescue with the support of people like you. So please, will you help us be there no matter what? Call 0800 121 4265 or text RESCUE to 81400 to start your monthly gift today. Thank you.
Have you ever considered what might happen if you didn't feel that way about yourself?
You know, your worth doesn't depend on what they think of you.
You've come so far. Maybe it's time to start giving yourself some of the credit.
Standing Committee on External Affairs headed by Congress MP Shashi Tharoor will meet at 11 a.m. tomorrow. Foreign Secretary is likely to brief the committee about current developments on the India-Canada issue. Remember, there have been diplomatic tensions between India and Canada, clashes between two Indian communities at a temple, Hindus and Sikh. How is it likely to pan out, and what role Indian diplomacy has to play to normalize situations between the two countries is something we will have to wait and see. For now, we know that there will be a meeting of the Parliament Standing Committee on External Affairs headed by Shashi Tharoor tomorrow. External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar has said that the attack on a Hindu temple in Brampton in Canadian province of Ontario was deeply concerning. Jaishankar further said that it was unacceptable that Indian diplomats had been placed under surveillance by Canada. A Canadian police officer was suspended on Monday after a video went viral on social media showing his participation in a pro-Khalistan protest outside a Hindu temple in Brampton. The suspended Peel Regional Police officer, identified as Harinder Sodhi, was caught on camera holding a Khalistan flag while others in the protest chanted anti-India slogans.
I think what happened yesterday at the Hindu temple in Canada was obviously deeply concerning. You would have seen the statement first by our official spokesperson and also the expression of concern by our Prime Minister yesterday. That should, I think, convey to you how deeply we feel about it.
A landmark judgment of the Supreme Court on property. Not every resource owned by a person can be considered a material resource of community to be used for common good, the Supreme Court said in a landmark judgment earlier today, which could impact property ownership at large. The court noted that the Indian economy has already transitioned from dominance of public investment to the coexistence of public and private investments. My colleague Sunil Prabhu gets us this report.
Well, what it means is that if you or me have a private property, a house, it cannot be procured unless you can get the public trust doctrine. It meets that requirement, or it is for the greater common good, which will have to be determined, as I said, through a determination of the Supreme Court of a public trust document that has been put out. So you just can't, in today's new, as the Chief Justice of India pointed out, who was giving the judgment for 7 judges, there was a concurring judgment of Justice Nagratna. So it's actually 8:1. The one dissenting point, they were disagreeing with the late Justice Krishna Iyer on the issue about the fact that all private property can be acquired for the greater common good. What they have said is that the economy has transformed, as you rightly said. It's become an economic democracy, and it's in this context that you can definitely take over you can't take over private property unless it is for the greater common good, and that through a public trust doctrine, which the Supreme Court has already envisaged.
Now, in a massive relief to about 17 lakh madrasa students in Uttar Pradesh, the Supreme Court upheld the constitutional validity of Madrasa Education Act 2004, setting aside the Allahabad High Court order that struck down the law on grounds that it violated the principles of secularism. The Supreme Court said that madrasas granting Fazil and Kamil degrees beyond class 12 cannot be recognized by Uttar Pradesh Madrasa Board as there is conflict with the UGC Act, and to that extent it was unconstitutional. In a troubling development, recent deaths of 10 elephants in the Bandhavgarh Tiger Reserve have been linked to the consumption of the kodo plant, according to a forensic report submitted by the Center for Wildlife Conservation, Management and Disease Surveillance at the ICAR, Indian Veterinary Research Institute in Bareilly in Uttar Pradesh. My colleague Anurag Dwari has this report.
as per our sources from Bandhavgarh Tiger Reserve, that Kodo is the cause, and now after this report from the disease surveillance ICR Indian Veterinary Research Institute in Bareilly, they have debunked the claims of intentional poisoning of elephants in Bandhavgarh, which is in Umaria district, Madhya Pradesh. And the report was submitted to the Deputy Director of Bandhavgarh Tiger Reserve. And the report clearly says that the deaths was due to the contamination from Kodo crops, specifically its fungal toxins. The report followed an investigation based on visceral organ, content sent by the reserve to the institute on November 2nd. The samples including liver, kidney, spleen, heart, lung, stomach were analyzed for the presence of various toxic substances. These included cyanide, nitrate, nitrite, heavy metals, commonly used insecticides, and the active principle of cyclopyozonic acid. So analysis found no traces of other, poisonous substances, but cyclopyozonic acid was detected in all pooled samples with concentrations exceeding 100 ppb.
In another story, Delhi Environment Minister Gopal Rai chaired a meeting with concerned departments on the issue of rising pollution levels in national capital. The air quality of the national capital has been in the very poor category in the last few days, with many areas in Delhi reaching severe category. At a meeting, it was decided that there would be a campaign against outdoor burning, and the Environment Minister also said that they want permission for artificial rain. In a significant move to make India a sporting powerhouse, Indian Olympic Association formally sent a letter of intent to the future host commission of the International Olympic Committee, expressing New Delhi's interest in hosting the Olympic and the Paralympic Games in 2036. According to a report, the letter was submitted on the 1st of October. The buzz around India's bid to host prestigious Olympics has been ongoing since Paris Olympics in August. Prime Minister Narendra Modi on multiple occasions expressed India's interest in hosting the Olympic and the Paralympic Games in 2036. Kiwi spinner Ajaz Patel has been the toast of the town after his incredible match haul at the Wankhede Stadium that sunk the Invincibles or the Indian cricket team. He picked up 11 wickets in the match to hand India a 25-run loss in Mumbai. The hero of the match as well as the player of the match for the Mumbai Test spoke to us earlier this evening. Ajaz, one of the beautiful memories of the Test match for me was of your daughter. After you guys had completed the route, she came out, outstretched arms there. What does she remember? What are her memories of the Test match?
Yeah, to be honest, it's been very, very special, I guess, to have my family here. My wife, my daughter, mum and dad were here as well. And so it was really cool to be able to play in front of them. Obviously, I don't get many opportunities to play at home. So for them to be here and be able to watch me play has been very special. And, my daughter... it's a really special moment, I guess, to be able to take them out onto the field. She's very young at this point in time, so I don't know how much of it she will remember, but she has a great memory. So hopefully she'll remember it. But I think at the moment she doesn't really quite understand what just happened and what had unfolded. So it'll be a nice memory to share with her, I guess, once she's a little bit older and understands a bit more around what's just happened.
Ajaz, let me ask you about the celebrations in the Kiwi camp. Are they still going on? What have they been like?
Yeah, there was certainly some celebrations, I guess, post game, but they were also wrapped up fairly quickly because obviously we've got some series coming up, and then we've got a big series coming up back home. So yeah, while we do certainly make sure we enjoy the wins because they are special, especially Test victories and Test matches are extremely special for us, and we hold them in very high regard. So we certainly celebrated that, and it was nice because I guess when you're having those celebrations, it's nice to just sit around a table and have some good conversations around, what we just achieved, how we went about it, what different people did throughout the series was quite special to kind of be able to do and share and have those moments together.
Did you know Experian is the UK's most trusted credit score? You can download the app for free. Easy peasy. Before you do credit, do Experian first.
However your home uses the internet, EE has the perfect Wi-Fi for you. We've got full fiber for only $29.99 a month. Perfect for binging all your favorite shows with no upfront costs. Keep your whole home seamlessly connected with the UK's most reliable broadband technology. Powered by BT. And if that's still not enough, you can upgrade to Wi-Fi 7, where everything you love works better. No wonder families choose EE. Search EE Broadband Deals.
I love crowds, if you can believe it. But wherever I go, they always ask, where's Wally?
Yeah.
Never, who's Wally? Sometimes it takes someone who really knows you to make you feel seen.
Gifts that say I get you. Etsy has it.
I'll do the travel arrangements this time.
Okay, just call Southall Travel.
I've got this.
When you try to make travel arrangements yourself, things can get complicated. With multiple airlines, hotels, and booking sites, the choice can be overwhelming. Trying to fit everything together can drive you up the wall.
I give up.
Hello, Southall Travel. Southall Travel can help you arrange flights and package holidays anywhere in the world. Call us 24/7 for the best prices and impartial advice. Done.
I'll do the packing.
Save up to £220 on your home insurance. He's just used Confused. JustUsedConfused.com.
Visit bingoaliens.com/bingo for a cosmic range of bingo games, taking bingo to another dimension at bingoaliens.com/bingo.
It's time to play high-low. Go higher or lower with Grosvenor's free daily game, with thousands of prizes to be won when you call it right. Download the app or play online.
With conflicts on the rise around the world, all too often, children are caught up in the violence.
This is like nothing I've seen before. We've got children who've suffered injuries in the most horrendous circumstances.
£5 a month can help provide life-saving medical care for children with blast injuries like Ahmed. It can also give mothers a safe place to give birth.
Lana's the first baby born at Save the Children's emergency maternity ward in Gaza. Access to safe delivery is absolutely vital, especially during conflict. We just urgently need your help to give newborns like Lana the best possible start in life.
No child should have their lives destroyed by conflict. Please search Save the Children or visit savethechildren.org.uk and give £5 a month to help more children like baby Lana today and for as long as they need us.
Watching the news, I'm Gargi Rawat. Up ahead, we'll get you all the latest on the US elections as polling is underway. We'll be going across to our reporters. We'll be joined by Alistair from Virginia, Natasha from Philadelphia, and William joins us from Sunshine State of Florida. They'll get us all the very latest. First, let's take a look at the headlines at this hour. Voting underway in the United States for the 47th president. Will it be Democrat nominee and Vice President Kamala Harris or Republican nominee and former U.S. President Donald Trump? The result may actually take days. Do watch our extensive coverage right here on NDTV. Born of an Indian mother, will Kamala Harris create history as the first woman U.S. president? Special prayers offered at her mother's ancestral village in Tamil Nadu, where she embodies women empowerment. Not all privately owned properties qualify as community resources that the state can take over for the common good, is what the Supreme Court has ruled today in a landmark verdict which could impact property ownership at large.
As Delhi's air pollution worsens, the Environment Minister Gopal Rai chaired an emergency meeting. There will be a campaign against outdoor burning in Delhi. He also said they want permission for artificial rain. And in a significant step towards India's vision of becoming a sports powerhouse, the Indian Olympic Association has sent a letter to the International Olympic Committee expressing India's interest to host the Games in 2036. Well, it's election day in the US and people are lining up now to cast their vote. This after months of intense campaigning by Kamala Harris and Donald Trump. Most analysts are calling this a very, very tight race. Let's go across to Ankit now for all the very latest. Over to you, Ankit.
Thank you, Gargi. And as you said, people are lining up since the early morning in United States to cast their vote. And as we often call in Indian elections, it's a very crucial election. This is being seen not only a crucial election in recent American history, but also a crucial verdict for just United States and across the globe as well. It will have massive implications. So just to try and understand what's the mood on the ground and how are people, what are the issues that they are voting for? Is it a done deal? Is it as tight as most of these polls are predicting? In fact, the latest Ipsos poll puts Kamala Harris at 50% and Donald Trump at 48%, which many analysts would call within the margin of error. Let's very quickly go across to Alistair, who is at this moment in Virginia, largely blue. We have a great mix, and William is joining us from Florida. That's largely seen as red. And we have Natasha in the swing state of Pennsylvania. She's in Philadelphia, possibly the state that is going to, one of the states that is going to decide this election. Alistair, coming to you. Earlier when we were talking to you, there was a first-time voter that you were speaking to. A lot of people are calling this election and the voter turnout very, very crucial. Is that reflecting some sort of urgency, the kind of numbers that you are seeing of people coming to vote in the United States at this moment?
Well, I can tell you that it's been quite a busy morning here at the school in Arlington, Virginia. A lot of people coming through, as we've been hearing. We spoke to some of them earlier as well. But as far as votes go and the different kind of voting banks that we've been looking at, we talked a little bit about the Indian vote. I'd like to now talk about the Latino vote, and to help me do that is Jeffrey Kean. He is an opinion columnist with Pan Am website. It's a conservative website that publishes in both English and also in Spanish. Now, Jeffrey, there are about 36 million eligible Latino voters, right? Traditionally, the Democrats have had a strong hold as far as they're concerned, but Trump has been making inroads with this group. What is it that these Latino voters that support Trump really find appealing in him?
Thank you very much for the invitation. In this election cycle, I think the main issue is open borders. We are Hispanics, we are immigrants, but we don't want the border to be open so everybody can enter to the United States. We like immigration, but immigration have to be in an orderly manner, following the law. The second issue, I believe, is inflation. Inflation has been huge for us. Prices have been going up at least for 35%. In the case of gasoline, it doubled the price from $1.85 per gallon. Right now it's almost $4, and that hit us harder.
All right, so but talking about inflation, the numbers are actually showing that they're on a downward trajectory. We'll get to that maybe if we have time. But I just wanted to pick up about what you said about illegal immigrants. That's quite a hot button issue for Latino voters. Many of them perhaps have relatives here who've come in here waiting to claim asylum. But Trump has said that he's going to deport millions of illegal immigrants, perhaps 10 million. How is that going to be appealing to the Latino base? It just doesn't add up, does it?
Well, it is impossible that inflation is going down. If gasoline goes to 185, I will believe it. But answering your question, maybe we have 15 million of illegal immigrants that have crossed the border in the last 3.5 years. They are here illegally. I mean, that the war explained by itself. They are here illegally. So if they are here illegally and if they have entered the United States breaking the law, they have to leave. The United States is a republic based in laws.
All right.
So, and we are happy. We are very happy, and we admire this country because we follow the law.
All right. I'm afraid we probably have to leave it there. Just got a cue from the studio, but thanks very much indeed for your time. As you can see, Jeffrey Kane here, a strong Republican supporter, voted for Trump.
Oh, yeah, of course. Washington, D.C. In Washington, are you just going to make a comment on what's happening in Washington, D.C.?
I have to cut you off, but we'll try and get you on later.
Okay.
Back to you, Ankit, in the studio.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alistair, for joining us from Virginia there. Let me very quickly go to William. William, home state for President Donald Trump. It has been a very aggressive campaign right to the end. You know, some people would call it what Donald Trump supporters would want to see, an aggressive Donald Trump, his trademark style. Campaign has now ended. What's the mood there in Florida?
Well, from the Donald Trump campaign, there is plenty of optimism. Donald Trump telling supporters on Monday on his final pitch to voters that he said that Republicans, based on early voting, important to note that more than 80 million people across America have already cast their ballots. He says that Republicans are up by tens of thousands of votes. That's the claim from Donald Trump and his supporters. He says that he is in very good shape heading towards the final hours of this bitterly fought, incredibly divisive campaign. He has once again peddled claims of election interference, saying that the Democrats will seek to cheat the election outcome. That, of course, has been strongly refuted by election officials, but that is certainly a key trend that we'll be waiting to hear from, not just on election day, but in the days to come, if indeed the polling is accurate and the voting is as close as many expect it to be. We are expecting to hear from Donald Trump himself. He's slated to address supporters a little later, right here in West Palm Beach, where I'm based. And for his supporters, they'll be hoping it's a victory speech. But of course, there's plenty of optimism from the Harris campaign as well. And as mentioned from that polling, it seems like it's very close. Even little things like the weather. There is a huge tropical storm here in Florida. Even those tiny, intangible things like the weather could make all the difference in this election race.
Absolutely. In fact, we were looking at the weather report, and Wisconsin is, in fact, started with a very cold morning, and that's going to be a crucial state which could decide the election one way or the other. Gauri Dwivedi is also joining us from Washington, D.C. Natasha is there from Philadelphia. Natasha, last time when we spoke, you were with some DJs playing fantastic music. It was great atmosphere there. Which way is Pennsylvania swinging this time? Because that is one of the key states with 19 electoral votes that people are watching out for.
Absolutely. There's a reason why it's called a swing state, because it's going to swing either which way, and it's too early to say which side. But I do want to send you two different perspectives within the same family. We have Robert Thomas, who's 59 years old, and one of his daughters, Zainat, 28 years old. They came here in a family of 6 people, and I don't want to fit all of them into the frame, but so we have father and daughter, and we're going to talk to them about what is important to their demographic.
Well, today for me, for Kamala Harris to win, that's the important part. But I want the wealth for black men to come up a little more than we is. That's my main achievement for her to do, is to make the black man wealthy again. You know what I mean? We down here struggling in Philly, but when she said she's gonna make black men wealthy again, that's my main goal.
Do you think she's told you how she's going to help make the black man wealthy?
Well, she said she was going to put in a plan some good programs that we could get to, that is easy access for black men in the city, you know what I mean, to overcome the battle that we're going through today. And the city down here in Philadelphia is real rough. And I'm taking care of my kids the best as I can, but we need wealth for my grandkids and my great-grandkids. That's my main concern.
She has talked about small businesses also and how she can help black men who often don't have that easy access to loans for small businesses to start their own businesses as well. Now, what's important to you, Zaina? You were talking about the disillusionment that you feel with the crime levels in Philadelphia. How are you feeling today?
I'm feeling amazing, but right now I want to talk about the crime that's in the city because these kids in Philadelphia are ridiculous. They are getting out of hand. I think they don't know what to do with these kids. I also want to vote for Kamala Harris because, for one, she's African American, also Indian, and for her to be a woman to become a president, that's amazing. I would love her to become a woman, be a president, and that's really all I had to say to me.
And what would you say, Zaina and Robert, both of you, when it comes to crime? In fact, Donald Trump made it a big issue in his campaign, saying that crime is up because of immigrants. That's what he says. And he talks about crime in big cities, including Philadelphia, being up as well. So a lot of people will argue that he may be tougher on crime than Kamala. So what do you say to that?
No, I feel as though Trump just looking out for his people. You know what I mean? Not saying black, white, but his people, Republican, period. You know what I mean? If we put together a base for Democrats to overcome what we're going through, it should be no problem. We could win this. I'm waiting for Kamala to come through and do what she said she's going to do without any interruptions. That's about it.
All right, there. So we are hearing from a father and daughter who are both voting for Kamala Harris, and to them what's important to the daughter is also crime and an economy, jobs, better opportunities for African Americans is what's important to them, and they are a crucial voting bloc here in Pennsylvania, and there are a lot of factors that play in Pennsylvania, and we'll have a better idea later, much later in the night, as to which way it swings.
Absolutely, the swing state of Pennsylvania, a lot of people dancing their way through to the polling booths. Gauri is in Washington, D.C. Gauri, just give our viewers some perspective about the Indian-American community there. Very crucial in this election. On one side is Kamala Harris, just 2 days when the campaign ended, putting out a photo of her mother, trying to invoke that connection with India. On the other hand, Donald Trump calls himself the best friend with Prime Minister Modi and a good friend of India.
Indeed, Indian Americans will pretty much be at the center of this election. And in fact, I have with me, Ankit, a bunch of Indian Americans as well as African Americans here as well. And before I come to them, let me just quickly tell you one important statistic, which is that Indian Americans right now are being wooed by both the Democrats and the Republicans. And in a state like Pennsylvania, where Natasha is right now, 100,000 Indian Americans could actually swing the verdict either in favor of Harris or Trump. So they're that crucial, and which is why both sides are in fact wooing them. I have with me Indian Americans as well as African Americans to talk about, well, who they voted for and what does this election mean for you?
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be with you this morning.
Thank you.
Of course, you're certainly welcome. I voted for Kamala Harris and Tim Walz. This is a very consequential election, and I'm very confident that she has a very, very good chance of winning. What I like about her style is her class. She is the epitome of intellect. She's very committed to the people. She's going to do the right things for the people, and she has been very civil in her discourse and in her dialogue, unlike the other person, who has been quite vulgar, if I might say so.
Oh, okay, that's an extreme.
Thank you so much.
Okay,
That's my perspective.
yeah. Okay, but what about you? Who have you voted for, and what's the big thing that you've actually thought about when you ticked on that ballot paper?
Well, this is one of my very first few elections that I voted in, so I'm still sort of new to the voting scheme, but I voted for Harris as well. And that's just based upon me believing that she seems to be more of an honest person towards the American people, and she seems like she'll stand foot for a good cause, so that's why I voted for her.
As I said, Ankit, I also have Indian Americans with me here. Sir, you've voted, and most importantly, what is that number one thing on which you've actually exercised your franchise?
Thank you for having me. I think the biggest thing is the candidate who's going to take the country to a higher moral ground. And that's very important for our country. And definitely people should look beyond the party lines. People should look at which candidate brings value in moral grounds to the country, because our kids can look forward to.
Indian Americans are being wooed by both Republicans and Democrats. Where does the community stand? Quickly.
I would say majority would stand this time on the Democratic side.
Okay. All right. One word, if you had to say in terms of message to your African American community to come out and vote, what would that be?
Vote for integrity and commitment to the best part of American democracy.
All right, you heard those, Ankit. Important messages coming in, both from the Indian American community as well as from the African American community, both important in deciding who will be the winner in this contest.
You know, this election has been quite polarizing, and you can hear the voters when they speak about their choice of the candidate. You can hear the kind of messages that they have. Thank you so much, Gauri, Natasha, Alistair, and William, for joining us at this moment. It will take probably more than 24 hours. By afternoon tomorrow, Indian time, Gargi, we'll know who actually is winning this election. But as I said, it's just not people in the United States, but across the world keenly watching.
Absolutely. It might even take more than that. Could even take days, Ankit. So let's wait and see. But in other news now, a landmark judgment of the Supreme Court on property. Not every resource owned by a person can be considered a material resource of community to be used for common good, is what the Supreme Court said in its judgment, which could impact property ownership at large. The court noted that the Indian economy has already transitioned from dominance of public investment to the coexistence of public and private investments when they arrived at this verdict, which was 7-1. Well, let's go across to Sunil Prabhu now for more on this story. And Sunil, tell us, what will this now impact for the, Aam Aadmi, for the common man? What does this now mean?
Well, what it means is that if you or me have a private property, a house, it cannot be procured unless you can get the public trust doctrine. It meets that requirement, or it is for the greater common good, which shall have to be determined, as I said, through a determination of the Supreme Court of a public trust document that has been put out. So you just can't. In today's as the Chief Justice of India pointed out, who was giving the judgment for 7 judges, there was a concurring judgment of Justice Nagratna. So it's actually 8-1. The one dissenting point, they were disagreeing with the late Justice Krishna Iyer on the issue about the fact that all private property can be acquired for the greater common good. What they have said is that the economy has transformed, as you rightly said. It's become an economic democracy. And it's in this context that you can definitely take over you can't take over private property unless it is for the greater common good, and that through a public trust doctrine, which the Supreme Court has already invested on.
All right, Sunil, thanks so much for joining us with those details. And staying with news of the Supreme Court, in a massive relief to about 17 lakh Madarsa students in Uttar Pradesh, the Supreme Court today upheld the constitutional validity of the Madarsa Education Act 2004, setting aside the Allahabad High Court order that struck down the law on grounds that it violated the principles of secularism. The Supreme Court further said that madrasas granting Fazil and Kamil degrees beyond class 12 cannot be recognized by the UP Madrasa Board, as they are in conflict with the UGC Act, and that to that extent it was unconstitutional. Now, let's get you the latest on Delhi's pollution crisis. And Delhi Environment Minister Gopal Rai chaired a meeting with concerned departments on the rising pollution levels in the national capital. The air quality of the national capital has been in the very poor category for the last couple of days, even reaching severe category in some parts. At the meeting, it was decided there would be a campaign against outdoor burning, and the Environment Minister also said they want permission for artificial rain. Now, And a significant move to make India a sporting powerhouse, Indian Olympic Association has formally sent a letter of intent to the future host commission of the International Olympic Committee expressing New Delhi's interest in hosting the Olympic and Paralympic Games in 2036. According to the report, the letter was submitted on the 1st of October, and the buzz around India's bid to host the prestigious Olympics has been ongoing since the Paris Olympics in August. That is when it was also spoken of that one day India too would host the Olympics, and the Prime Minister Narendra Modi on multiple occasions also expressed India's interest in hosting the 2036 Olympics and Paralympic Games. So now it has it has emerged that India has indeed sent this letter expressing its interest in hosting the Olympic Games in 2036. This is a letter of intent which has been sent to the future host commission of the International Olympic Committee. That is the one that decides on whether which countries will be hosting the upcoming Olympic Games. So it will be a huge deal for India if indeed we are chosen for that. Let's go across to Rika now for more. And Rika, so it's really good news to know that we're bidding for the Olympic Games.
Well, Gargi, you see, this is a letter of intent that has gone out to the International Olympic Committee. There are many steps that are going to be required to be done after this. This is just the first step, and India will be facing stiff competition from the likes of Qatar, Saudi Arabia and Turkey in terms of getting the hosting rights. This has been an absolute desire of our Prime Minister Narendra Modi. He has been doing an advocacy for getting the games for a while now. In fact, at the IOC session in Mumbai last year, a lot of the leaders, world leaders, had talked about getting Olympic Games to India. We're still some time away. We don't know whether it comes, but the mood really is upbeat, and the PT Usha-led team of Indian Olympic Association has shot off this letter of intent today. Of course, the International Olympic Committee elections are going to happen, and only after that will a decision be taken on the 2036 host city. In the meantime, there is the Los Angeles Olympics that will happen in 2028, Brisbane in 2032, and so it is after 12 years we are expecting this Olympic Games to happen. Lots of time between now and then. Of course, there will be people who will be coming to India to assess the infrastructure, and it seems right now that Ahmedabad is going to be the host city, and the infrastructure is going to be ready by 2027.
All right, thanks so much, Rika, for joining us with all the latest there. Yes, indeed, it's a long way to go, but interesting that we are at least showing our interest in hosting the games. With that, it's a wrap from me. News updates continue right here on NDTV.
Family life. It's made of ups and downs, and those little moments. But should the unthinkable happen to you? Life insurance from Legal & General can help look after monthly bills, the roof over their heads, childcare costs, and most importantly, your family. Because no one protects more families in the UK than us. Premiums start from £5 a month and they never rise. Plus there's a £120 gift card after you apply. Legal & General. Ensure life goes on.
Breaking news. Whoa. Duracell, the official partner of Williams Racing.
It's time for a power boost. I gotta train harder. Whoa! Power boost activated. Try Duracell Optima for the next level of power.
There's something new in Lottoland. Get set for a welcome offer. Stake £20 on Big Bass Bonanza and get 100 free spins at Lottoland Casino.
When Tony passed, we wanted to celebrate him his way. All he ever spoke about was bite this, bite that. I'll never forget our first date. Huge grin on his face as he rode up on that big noisy thing. And that's exactly the way he'd want to be remembered.
At Co-op Funeral Care, we know everyone is different. That's why we offer funeral plans to funeral services that are personal, every step of the way.
man and well woman. The UK's #1 vitamins for men and women. Live life well. From Vitabiotics, the UK's #1 vitamin company.
When you're setting up a new nest, starting your own flock, or they just keep on growing. Get the flexibility you need with VeryPay. Pay now, pay later, or pay over 3 months and pay no interest. We'll even send you helpful payment reminders. Shop the online store for fashion, home and more. VeryPay. Ways to pay that work your way.
However your home uses the internet, EE has the perfect Wi-Fi for you. We've got full fiber for only $29.99 a month. Perfect for binging all your favorite shows with no upfront costs. Keep your whole home seamlessly connected with the UK's most reliable broadband technology. Powered by BT. And if that's still not enough, you can upgrade to Wi-Fi 7, where everything you love works better. No wonder families choose EE. Search EE Broadband Deals.
A lot of banks will let you open bank accounts, put some cash away into a fixed deposit account, or open an ISA online with a few clicks. But very few have branches that you can walk into and talk to someone without an appointment.
But there are only some banks which have been serving you for more than 100 years in the UK to do all this.
That bank is SBI UK.
A Fortune 500 financial institution offering technology-driven banking solutions with a human touch. SBI UK, the bank with a global reach.
Have you ever considered what might happen if you didn't feel that way about yourself?
I guess I didn't even think it was possible. I've just felt this way for so long.
Well, of course it is. You're here, so surely part of you believes it's possible, right?
From interesting tech startups to industry-leading companies, politics, sports, culture, curry, cricket. Oh, there's so much to talk about. Like me, if you too thrive on interesting conversations, this is a show you cannot miss. Watch this space to know more about all matters and all people that make Britain what it is today. Out of Britain, with me, Radhika Iyer.
I now request the Honourable Prime Minister to launch NDTV World and address the summit.
It was the grand launch of NDTV World by Prime Minister Narendra Modi. NDTV World, as he laid out his vision for the India century at the NDTV World Summit.
ऐसी सदी जिसमें भारत के प्रयासों से दुनिया में स्थिरता आए.
In the presence of those who are shaping our future.
मेरी तरफ से आपको ढेर सारी शुभकामनाएं हैं.
NDTV World, your new home for global news is here.
This is NDTV, and you're watching NDTV 24/7.
From interesting tech startups to industry-leading companies, politics, sports, culture, curry, cricket. Oh, there's so much to talk about. Like me, if you too thrive on interesting conversations, this is a show you cannot miss. Watch this space to know more about all matters and all people that make Britain what it is today. Out of Britain, with me, Radhika Iyer.
I now request the Honourable Prime Minister to launch NDTV World and address the summit.
It was the grand launch of NDTV World by Prime Minister Narendra Modi.
Good morning. You are watching NDTV's special coverage on the US election. Good morning, India, but good evening, America. The world's eyes are fixed on a moment that will define the future of America and perhaps the world. As the 2024 presidential election enters its final hours, the vote count is underway and the stakes could not be higher. It's a showdown like no other. Donald Trump, the former president, seeks to reclaim the White House for a second time, while Vice President Kamala Harris stands as the Democratic contender, aiming to break new ground and become the first female president of the United States. The race is tight, the battleground states are crucial, and every vote counts. The outcome, viewers, will hinge on a handful of key districts, with both sides bracing for a long night ahead. Will the country return to Trump's vision of America, or will Kamala Harris rise to lead the next chapter? These are the big questions. The tension, you can imagine, is palpable. The stakes are unprecedented, and the world is watching. Stay with us as we bring you the fastest updates, live results, and expert analysis on what could be a historic night for the United States of America and the world. But first, let's take a look at the headlines. First, US poll election results begin trickling in from Indiana and Kentucky, while voting continues largely smoothly across the rest of the United States of America. Voters are worried about election violence. Early exit polls indicate just under 3/4 of those asked said they felt democracy was very or somewhat threatened in the United States, and about 7 in 10 voters in this current data were actually worried about violence as a result of the election. About 10 polling locations in a handful of Georgia counties will stay open late due to non-credible threats that briefly disrupted voting. Well, the first polls are closing in Indiana and Kentucky as the United States enters the final hours of voting in this election. Voters say democracy and the economy are the most important issues informing how they voted in the US election, early exit polls suggest. But at first blush, the opening round of exit polls aren't too surprising, many would say. But Patsy Veerakuswara joins us to testify what's happening on ground zero. Patsy, what does the mood indicate? The economy and the state of democracy have emerged as the two top issues for American voters this year?
Well, of course, other than economy and the state of democracy, there's also the issue of immigration and abortion. Immigration is very important for Trump supporters, while abortion is a very key concern for Harris supporters. Right now, behind me is the Harris headquarters election watch party tonight, where in a few hours, Kamala Harris and Tim Walz, her VP pick, will come and hopefully celebrate with her supporters. As you can see, people are starting to trickle in. Harris herself is right now having dinner with her family, a private dinner, and won't be seen until a couple more hours. Nevertheless, the campaign is saying that they are confident they're going to keep on focus to see this process through. I think you mentioned some states have seen results trickling in. There's about 6 states where polls are closing shortly, or around 7 p.m., just a few more minutes from now. And then we'll start to see the results coming in from several states, for example, Florida, Georgia, and other states as well to follow. So definitely a lot to look out for tonight. But right now, the mood here is starting to feel celebratory. I don't know if you can hear the music behind me. This is them checking the sound. Just a few minutes ago, there's the singing of the national anthem. So it's going to be a long party, but how long, we don't yet know.
Well, thanks so much, Patsy, for joining us from that location. We will, of course, revert to you for regular updates as things get fast and hot and moving. For Republicans, as Patsy is highlighting, immigration joined the economy near the top of their concerns, an issue that hardly merited a mention from Democrats. But for those on the left, abortion rights along with democracy were much more important. It is a bit of a surprise that the economy wasn't a dominant top issue for American voters, given how much of the political debate has actually centered around the post-pandemic spike in inflation. But it could be, as analysts point out, because there were some Republicans also worried about the state of American democracy, albeit for very different reasons than Democrats. Of course, these exit polls are rough data points, and that should not be treated as gospel, as we have mentioned, given extremely stringent health warnings. But the real verdict in this election is yet to come. 7 swing states will decide whether Kamala Harris or Donald Trump is sworn in as the next president of the United States in January. And their polling averages are all within the margin of error. In fact, in an election this close, small constituencies really matter. Well, we have William Denslow joining us now at the moment. William, it's going to be a busy night for you ahead. What is the mood indicating, and what are American voters most concerned about this time around?
Well, I'm here at a Trumpsters event around 15 miles or so from Mar-a-Lago, Donald Trump's primary residence here in West Palm Beach, around 10 miles or so from the convention center where Donald Trump is expected to address his supporters a little bit later this evening on the East Coast. And this Trumpsters event is a group that meets around every week of Donald Trump supporters, Republican supporters. And as you can see behind me, this party is just getting started. The band has just started to play, and it's certainly a buoyant mood here at this party. Plenty of optimism that Donald Trump can reclaim the presidency. That optimism is further fueled by comments made by Donald Trump himself at a polling station shortly after he cast his ballot along with his wife Melania here in Palm Beach a few hours ago. He said they are doing well everywhere. He said that his team is very confident. For Donald Trump, he said the key issues in the minds of his supporters: immigration, border security, and that of the economy.
Economy, immigration, inflation have emerged as the top issues that have been echoed amongst many states in America. In fact, many political watchers assert that the argument that Harris has underperformed tends to actually rest on 2 different charges: that she's played it too safe when it comes to policy issues, and that she's also played it too vague when it comes to issues of economy and the immigration. We also have Kate Fisher joining us at the moment. Kate, the national environment in the United States in general, is it one with all the ingredients for a Republican landslide and a conservative cultural rebuke? What have you been able to pick up on?
Well, I'm here in the center of Washington, D.C. at a watch party full of Kamala Harris supporters. They're actually queuing up out the door to get in here. The TV screens are showing the American networks. The people here optimistic that she has a chance of making history and becoming the first, not just woman, but Indian American and African American woman to become president of the United States. After a hectic campaign schedule, of course, she only became the nominee in the summer. She spent today calling into radio shows across those swing states, which are the ones that will determine who becomes the president. And then she went to a phone bank here in Washington, D.C., picked up the phone and talked to some voters, persuading them to head to the polls for her. I just want to show you that in this bar here in Washington, D.C., they're giving you a map of the United States, and you can color in with your crayons when each state goes to which color. It is so close, it's impossible to know who is going to win this yet, but certainly the people here are all hoping it will be Kamala Harris.
Well, let's hope that map that they have to color in doesn't look split between both blue and red. Americans have been quite excited about this entire election and the run-up. We have seen people have been tied between both sides, but they've also been quite vocal and upset with the direction the country is heading in. This is what we've also been able to pick up from different polls. Republicans, though, seem to have an edge in national party identification. In fact, I must inform our viewers here in India as well that comparison to the last few decades, more people in America are actually identifying as Republican than Democrats as well. And pollsters have said that this may end up benefiting Donald Trump by the end of this day, perhaps week if it takes long to declare the election results. But Republicans have an edge in national party identification, as has been pointed out by pollsters. Also, Kate, Republicans tend to have an edge on most of the issues that seem to matter to voters, is what many argue, specifically the economy and immigration, right?
Well, certainly Donald Trump has made the economy and immigration two of the biggest things he's been speaking about, and it is essentially the two biggest things for all American voters, not just the Republicans. But all the polls show that the country is split really down the middle, and that half of the country agrees with the way Donald Trump wants to lead the economy and his policies on immigration, which include things like mass deportations, whereas the other half do not want to see those policies brought in, and that's the big issue. The big fundamental thing here is that they are fundamentally different from each other. And the country remains completely divided. So even though, yes, Republicans find immigration and the economy important, so do Democrats. They just both believe that each candidate is the right one to lead in that way, but they cannot find any sort of agreement between it. It means that whoever wins this election, and we may not know that tonight, will have real trouble, because half of the country will not want them in power. So whoever wins is also going to have to try and bring some kind of unity to a very polarized nation.
Well, Kate, thanks so much for joining us with that update. We'll, of course, revert to you for regular update. It's going to be a long night for you. We also have with us from Texas at the moment, Huma Iqbal. Huma, you're in Texas. Take us through some of the things, some of the moves that have appeared to be paying off for both Kamala Harris and Donald Trump in Texas.
Hello, good morning to you guys, and it's almost closing time over here, showtime for us over here in the US, and I think it's a very nail-biting, a very close to neck-to-neck kind of a race that is going on. I see a lot of supporters for both sides, and a lot of people are coming in numbers. As you can see behind me, the lines, the queues are still so long, and you know, I have here the constable elected for Precinct 3 right now with us, Nabil Shaikh. Hello, and good evening, Nabil.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm wonderful. Thank you for having me.
Glorious 4 years. How and what different did you do for the community?
So, very first thing that we did was diversify our police department. Precinct 3 is the most diverse precinct in the most diverse county in America, and the police department didn't represent the diverse community. So the first things that we did was to bring a qualified and competent command staff to represent the community a little bit better. The constables used to shut down their offices at 10 o'clock at night. We stopped that. We're now 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We're here at the Four Corners Community Center. You look at all the events that we've been able to have throughout the last 4 years. We brought the first iftar to Fort Bend County. We came in during COVID, so all of the PPE equipment that we were giving out, food, water. Every year we have a Thanksgiving turkey drive. We do Memorial Day bashes. A lot of the stuff that we do is all community.
So what do you think is the main issues that our community is facing at the moment, and how should we elect, and what are the things that we should look for a change?
So right now what's under attack is female reproductive rights. I'm a proud father of 3 daughters, and so female reproductive rights are a huge issue, and it's a huge issue amongst women voters. And that's what we're seeing a lot out here. Even Republican voters refusing to vote for Donald Trump because of his stance when it comes to female reproductive rights.
And then if re-elected, what is your plans for the next 4 years?
Just to really continue to build on some of the amazing things that we've done over these last 4 years. We're still working on our accreditation, which is the best policies and procedures that you can have in law enforcement. And so we're about 60 policies away now. We've accomplished probably about 2/3 of it. And so hopefully, God willing, about February of next year we should have it.
And your thoughts on the immigration policies?
You know, immigration policies, as law enforcement, we just have to enforce some of the laws. We do have some discretion on, we can not do what certain things the government, the federal and state government tells us.
Do you see a lot of undocumented, because Texas is the hub for undocumented people, a lot of them. So how do you plan to handle that?
Well, I mean, we got to figure out a pathway to citizenship for everybody. I think, you know, people leave other countries to come here to America to try to find a better life. And so not everybody that's coming here are criminals. Not everybody that's coming here are trying to do harm to the United States. So we have to, when you look at immigration, you got to look at ways where you can vet the people coming in. And once they're here, figure out a way for them to have an easy pathway to citizenship. It doesn't do the country any good if they're not paying any taxes or they're not contributing to the economy. And if we could figure out a way to allow them to pay taxes, give them social security numbers and driver's license, so now they can be productive citizens of the county.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, and back to the studio.
And joining us now, also Natasha Esrani from Philadelphia in a moment, and Alistair D'Souza from Virginia. Natasha, I'd like to come to you first. Well, Philadelphia has been quite a toss-up is what people are saying. We don't know what to expect yet. What have you been picking up on? You have been covering this entire run-up to the election for about 4.5 months.
Yes, it's been a long time on the campaign trail. Well, I'm in Pennsylvania, and Philadelphia is the largest city in Pennsylvania. And there was a high turnout amidst voters here in Philadelphia, according to the city officials. And also, what is really crucial here is the young vote. Now, that comes in, there are certain polls that are showing that ages 18 to 29 are coming out in larger numbers in Pennsylvania, about 54% of the vote. And that can make a huge difference in a key battleground state where the prize is 19 electoral college votes. And we are now surrounded by two young women who voted for the first time. They're both 18-year-old at Temple University in the heart of Philadelphia. So how did it feel, first and foremost, to exercise your right to vote?
It felt great. I was really happy when I went to vote. I went really early in the morning, and there was no lines. And I mean, I have been learning about voting this whole time, and like learning about, you know, the importance of the election process and just how important it is to vote in general. So it just felt very freeing, and also as a new adult, it felt like, you know, I was able to accomplish one of my responsibilities that I now have. So I was very happy.
I felt very honored, honestly. I've always kind of been a little bit into politics, and to be able to contribute to this election was very, fulfilling in a way, because I'm very in tune with all the stuff that's going on with politics and with Trump's policies and all of these things. So for me to be able to try to contribute to the right side of things, I feel like that means a lot to me.
So what was the right side of things for you, both of you, and explain why do you think it is the right side of things for you?
Well, I voted for Kamala Harris, and I believe that she was the right side of things and the right choice because of her character and her policies. She advocates for women's rights. She advocates for better rights for the working class. And in terms of her character, we see her everywhere. In terms of her campaign process, she's shown how she's been involved in student work and in meeting with students. She's been involved in the working class and being able to just meet with people face to face. So I feel personally that her humanity is something we haven't seen in a while in terms of presidential candidates.
And you already mentioned Trump, and you also said that you're keenly following the politics of this current moment. What is the biggest issue at stake for you?
Oh my goodness. The biggest stake for me, honestly, would probably be either the policies going around about women's bodily rights, or probably the fact that he's considering eliminating the Board of Education, which is also and then also the student loan things as college students. That's something that's very, very important. And for our future kids, if they want to go to college, these things are things that they should have access to. These rights are things that they should be entitled to. So for Trump to try to go behind that and try to backtrack us even further, it's just definitely not okay, which is why I voted for Kamala. And I understand that she kind of had her own problems and own things, but when you look at, the candidates, it's someone that's actually working for the common good of the people versus a felon. So
Given that you are both voting in a major swing state, did that feel like additional pressure on your shoulders, or did you just feel like faraway politics to watch on television?
As far as pressure goes, it's just like, I feel like it was more like, I feel like I have to play my part. I have to do my part if I'm worried about how things are going to play out in the future. If I have any right to complain or anything like that, then I should be able to cast my vote and put those complaints and those opinions on something that actually matters towards the rest of the world.
Aman, you?
Yeah, as an out-of-state student, I was definitely very intrigued by the concept of voting in Philadelphia, or like in Pennsylvania in general, because I know I'm from New York, and that state has always been blue for the longest time. But in in Pennsylvania, it's a swing state. So I just felt like my vote mattered the most. Being able to vote here, being able to register to vote here, it felt a lot more. I felt like my say had more of a matter in this issue in terms of like choosing who to vote for, and I just felt like it was more important if I voted here than in New York.
Well, thank you both talking to us here about the rights of women over their bodies and their reproductive rights, and also the importance of voting for the first time. We also have other students now who are going to be joining us, talking to us about. Thank you so much, both of you. Please join us now. We want to talk to you a little bit more. Can you turn around? We're going to talk to you about what you were thinking of when you voted. Have you both voted?
Yes. First-time voters. We voted for Kamala. I strongly am, I believe in women's rights, and I feel like she was the best candidate. I feel like it was either a felon or someone who cares about the people and not just the upperclassmen. You know, Trump really only cares about those who are rich and wealthy, and I feel like Kamala cares about all of us and just for the people and you know, middle class, lower class.
Natasha, I sincerely apologize. I'm interrupting you. In fact, we have breaking news coming in. I must inform our viewers that Donald Trump has claimed massive cheating in Philadelphia in a short post on his Truth social media website, but failed to provide evidence. In fact, the Republican presidential candidate's unsubstantiated claim has been rejected by Philadelphia's city commissioner, saying that there's absolutely no truth to this allegation. In fact, Seth Bluestein has written on X saying it is yet another example of disinformation. Voting in Philadelphia has been safe and secure. Natasha is in Philadelphia at the moment. Natasha, now Trump has claimed massive cheating in Philadelphia in a short post on his Truth social media website. This is along expected lines, right?
Absolutely. This is not a surprise, to be honest, even though it is breaking news, because this is something that comes directly from Trump's playbook. They have been building to this for a while. One of their strategies of the campaign is to create that sense of fear and uncertainty and disinformation. And they've also talked a lot about having many lawyers on the ground, an army of lawyers and observers to watch this. So they are already building up to the argument that if this election were to be too close or were Kamala Harris to win, that then he's already laid the base or the ground to argue that there were unfair processes at play. And this has widely been corrected by election officials across the country who believe that voting has been fair. Of course, there have been incidents, as it is in a large democracy, where some ballots were misplaced. That's happened in Philadelphia as well in 2020. But now there are stronger measures in place here in Philadelphia to make sure that those votes are fair. So, you know, we have to treat all those reports with some amount of carefulness and skepticism.
Well, as the commissioner has endorsed as well. Natasha, we will, of course, revert to you in Philadelphia for an update. Let's just go across quickly to Michigan now, where Chris Casquejo joins us. Chris, latest Trump post says that there's been some cheating in Philadelphia along expected lines. Your first reaction?
That's Donald Trump being Donald Trump. We can talk about Michigan. Do you have any questions about Michigan?
Well, Arab, Muslim and progressive Americans have been divided on how to vote as they faced a difficult choice between these two candidates, which have both been unfriendly to Palestine, as many say. But in Michigan, where you are, the focus is also very much on the Arab American community. Long a reliable Democratic constituency, many of these voters are now furious, we hear, with the Biden administration for the handling of Israel's war in Gaza, now Lebanon. Has Trump been able to take advantage of this, Chris?
Yeah, there's actually a Trump field office in an enclave, a 2-mile wide enclave within the city of Detroit called Hamtramck that was traditionally a Polish neighborhood, but it's now home to newer Yemeni and Bangladeshi immigrants. And there's a Trump field office there, and their conservative mayor recently endorsed Donald Trump. Meanwhile, over in Dearborn, which is right next to Detroit, it has the largest Arab population outside of the Middle East. There are 300,000 total Arab Americans in Michigan and 110,000 in Dearborn. More than half are Arab American and 46% of them are Muslim. And I spent some time with voters on the ground there this morning, and they were very angry about the war in Gaza. Yes.
Right, Chris, we will of course revert to you for regular updates from Michigan. I'm going to take a quick break now and be back with the latest in just a moment.
Did you know Experian is the UK's most trusted credit score? You can download the app for free. Easy peasy. Before you do credit, do Experian first.
It's time to set sail with the Lucky Admiral. Visit LuckyAdmiral.com and discover loads of online and mobile casino games like blackjack, poker, roulette, slots, bingo, and more. The Lucky Admiral really has searched the 7 seas to bring a treasure trove of great games, all in one place. Visit today and you could win up to 500 free spins on 9 pots of gold. Simply make your first deposit and spin the mega reel for your chance to win. Bonuses ahoy with up to 500 free spins at LuckyAdmiral.com.
We all love a bargain, like these flatmates who switched to Vodafone and are now paying less for their full fibre broadband, which means they can still stream 2 shows at the same time. But for less. Still gaming with mates, but for less. He's behind you. Reliable full fibre broadband for less from Vodafone.
You could lock in a fixed energy deal now and take the power back. Switch and save at uswitch.com.
Kidding me?
You weren't supposed to burn the potatoes or invite everyone round at 2.
Until 3 o'clock, right?
We weren't supposed to do presents this year.
I can't even be mad at you now, can I?
And you weren't supposed to take everyone home again. We weren't supposed to have our Beth either. We weren't supposed to get married. And you weren't supposed to be here. But you are, thanks to the best gift you ever got. And mine is still having you.
To help us fund life-saving research, donate £5, £10 or £20, text 5, 10 or 20 to 70499.
At Direct Line, we know that for multi-property landlords, sometimes the tiniest of things can turn into way bigger problems. From niggly contract issues to keeping up with ever-changing legislation. That's why Direct Line's landlord insurance offers a 24/7 legal helpline as standard. Because a call with someone could help to make the hairiest of problems feel that little bit smoother. Search Direct Line Landlord Insurance. We're on it.
This Christmas, give joyful memories with Photobox. Turn your favourite moments into something special. Gift joy. Unwrap smiles with Photobox. Create now with 50% off everything in our early Black Friday event.
Welcome back to NDTV's special coverage on Battleground United States. Joining us now with live updates from Virginia and Washington, we have with us Gauri Dwivedi and Alistair D'Souza. Alistair, thanks so much for being so patient. I know it's a long night ahead for both of you. But Alistair, in terms of Trump's winnability, take us through where things stand as we speak right now. I know it's a long night ahead, but as things stand currently, how hopeful is Trump and Trump's team of actually winning back the White House?
That's the million-dollar question, Parmeshwar. We're all waiting on that, as you've just broken that news just moments ago about that tweet from Trump claiming potential fraud in Pennsylvania. Now, I'm actually in Virginia, and it's pretty much considered a blue state, pretty much. It's gone to the Democrats about 4 times in the last 4 election cycles. Biden has won here by 10 percentage points. In 2020, Kamala Harris is poised to win here by 5 percentage points. So why am I telling you this? Well, because the Republicans have already sown those seeds of doubt, likely laying the groundwork of saying that there could be potential fraud. So it's not a battleground state, but it could become a battle after the battle. Now, for example, you have a Republican governor here. He's managed to convince the Supreme Court to purge about 1,600 names from the ballot. Many of the people who've seen this say that there was no need to do that because many of these 1,600 people were not non-citizens. They simply did not have the right documents to prove that they were citizens, maybe an old driver's license and so on. So many saying that this could potentially be a place where lawsuits would be filed. And if you look at New Mexico way back in 2020, Trump filed a bunch of lawsuits there despite the Democrats, despite Biden winning by a huge margin. So that's the basic brief about Virginia and as far as what Trump goes. And before I hand it back to you, Parmeshwar, I need to draw your attention to where I am. I'm at a watch party. There are going to be lots and lots of watch parties across the US, across DC as well. But this one is kind of special because we're talking about an Indian American likely to make history tonight by becoming the first Indian American congressman from the East Coast. Now, The Economist magazine actually says that his odds are pretty good, 98 to 100. So looks likely that he might win here, an important contest for him. And of course, when that party starts and he gets here, we're going to have him on air as well. Back to you, Parmeshwar.
And perhaps be on the edge of history as well, Alistair. We're going to be troubling you through the course of the night. Let's go across to Gauri for a quick update from Washington, D.C. now. Gauri, we are aware both the Trump and Harris campaigns have lined up lawyers in preparation for potential legal challenges over these election results. But now Trump has come out and said that there are massive cheating claims in Philadelphia. You're in Washington, D.C. What's the mood there?
In fact, I am at Howard University, Parmeshwar, where Kamala Harris will hold her watch party. Behind me is the long queue of people going inside to attend that party. Predominantly, one can see a lot of students, a lot of college staff, professors going inside to the watch party. The reason for that is Kamala Harris is an alumni of this university, which is why the watch party is happening here. In the event that she turns out victorious in these elections, she wants her victory message, the first message as the president-elect, to be at her alumni and university, predominantly dominated by the African-American community, sending a powerful message to her community, to America, and of course to the world, that America is embracing its diversity, both racially as well as on the gender aspect. So that's where I am right now, and I think over the course of the next 3 to 4 hours, hopefully we'll have some clarity as to whether the victory party here, whether the victory party will take place here or all the way in Florida. But as we speak about the two aspects that you mentioned, Parmeshwar, very important, which is that are we looking at potential lawsuits and major legal trouble going into this election? Well, the first claims that have been made by Donald Trump have in fact been rebutted both by the Philadelphia District Attorney as well as the County Commissioner, who happens to be a Republican. He himself said that as of now, there's absolutely no claim, no base to any of these claims that have been made by Donald Trump. But the sense one gets is Philadelphia saw record voting in this election. Record. In fact, some of the visuals that came in the last couple of hours showed that queues were going up for 2 hours, if not more. And that indicates that if there is such high voter turnout in Philadelphia, a city that is 43% Black American, then it probably sends some sort of an early message. As I said, probably sends some sort of an early message to the Trump campaign, which is why we saw what really came out right now as a baseless allegation. But through the evening, we will know whether we're going to see more of that, or hopefully this election result will go without much drama, without any legal trouble.
Well, many, Gauri, would argue that the word Trump and drama are compatible, but voters, are they worried about election violence in Washington, D.C., where you are?
That's a very good question, Parmeshwar, and something that I've been asking ad nauseum almost to everybody I've met. And the one thing that they did say is that in 2020, when Donald Trump, when the whole issue and around January 6 took place, President Trump was still there. He was in office for about 70-odd days after he lost the election. So he was still the most powerful man and leader of the free world. That isn't the case this time around. He's an ordinary American citizen exercising his right to contest. So to that extent, the chances of anything significant happening this time around are very low. But again, those are just probability chances. In Washington, D.C. itself, a lot of movement has already taken place. National Guard has been mobilized in the event something happens this time around. But as I said, most people seem to suggest, or at least hope, that it is going to be, the chances of that happening are very, very less this time around.
Gauri, thanks so much for joining us with that live update. We will, of course, be reverting to you for regular updates from Washington, D.C. For now, let me also rope in to decipher the exit polls. We have with us Alex Taracio. Alex, thanks so much for making time for us on NDTV. Voters are worried about election violence. This is what early exit polls indicate. In fact, just under 3/4 of those asked, they say they felt democracy was very or somewhat threatened in the United States.
It's a very high number. That's true. I'm curious about that as well. I've seen in other exit polls that voters are saying that democracy is relatively high on their list of issues of top priority. If you add up the voters who care about democracy and the voters who care about abortion, it adds up to relatively what Harris's voter share is coming in at. And so the 75% figure struck me as strange. I haven't had time to dig into that poll, but I am curious what went into it. It's certainly not possible that those are all Democrats. That's too many. And so I wonder how many Republicans are in there and what people are interpreting when they say that democracy is their top issue.
Also, Alex, there's been a lot of talk about Kamala Harris's campaign's struggle with Black voters lately. Can you lay out what the struggle looks like in terms of what the polls are saying? Are we talking about Black people leaving the Democratic Party en masse?
No, we're not talking about that. I think it's more of a question of turnout. Kamala Harris has struggled more than Joe Biden did to get Black voters to turn out and to express enthusiasm for her campaign, and certainly more than Barack Obama, where that was a high watermark for the Democratic Party. I think the fact of the matter is that Donald Trump and the Republicans are doing more to appeal to Black voters, particularly Black men. And the shift in the party is almost exclusively from Black men. In the polling that I've seen, when it's 30% support for Donald Trump and 70% for Kamala Harris, that's among men, and it's 10-90 for women. And so this is more a story about gender than it's necessarily a story about race.
In fact, Alex, we have the latest numbers out as well. It seems that currently, as per the early leads, 19 states are going to Trump and 3 to Harris. That seems like a bit of a red footprint at the moment on the US map, with the Democrats in minority. I also want to get into one of the narratives we've seen this election cycle, Alex, and that's this flip in the parties when it comes down to education. One of the narratives that we've seen emerging is that Democrats are now the party of those with college degrees. So your lawyers, your doctors, and Republicans are more the party of the working class. So your blue-collar workers, maybe without a college degree. I'm trying to make sense of the dichotomy here, because here you have the Republican nominee, your front runner, wasn't really born without a silver spoon, and he's not ideally working class either. Help us understand how this is playing out.
We're in the middle of a political realignment that's been ongoing for some time. I think Donald Trump has accelerated that, but it'll continue to happen when he is gone. It used to be that college-educated voters were exclusively won by the Republican Party. That has been shifting, and now if you are highly educated, if you have a degree, you are more likely to be a Democrat. It's not overwhelmingly so, but you are more likely to vote Democrat. And meanwhile, the white working class are finding that they're throwing their lot in with the Republican Party. That's shifting across the country, that's shifting across racial groups, that's shifting across genders as well. And so education is absolutely one of the major fault lines in the parties today, and I expect to continue to see it move.
Well, also apparently through the first projections, I must inform our viewers that Harris is currently projected to win Vermont, but Trump is currently projected to win Kentucky. Alex, we're also yet to see the numbers play out, but do we know why Trump has been able to peel away some of the black voters? What are the factors there?
I think he's mostly peeling away black men. And if you're a black man, then the message from Kamala Harris is not appealing to you. Those messages are primarily, she will maintain your right to get an abortion, and Donald Trump is a fascist. That is not a winning campaign message. You can drag down another political candidate by calling him names, by denigrating them. Every candidate does that, so what she's doing isn't special. But what's remarkable is that she's made it the centerpiece of her campaign. Typically, policy is more of a top issue, and in an era where inflation in the economy and border security are voters' top concerns, I don't think that appealing to voter groups by calling the Republican Party nominee a fascist is a winning message, particularly among black men.
Well, Alex, thanks so much for joining us and helping us decipher the data. We will, of course, revert to you for regular updates as and when more projections come in. I'd also like to now introduce David K. Johnston, who joins us, who's a political strategist, gun control expert. Chika Hamilton's on the broadcast with us. We also have with us Raymond Vickery, former U.S. Assistant Secretary of Commerce, and Jennifer Kelly, who's a Republican strategist. Let's go straight across to Mr. Vickery first. Sir, are you hopeful that Kamala Harris is now going to be taking the reins for the White House, or could things still be completely different by the end of the night?
Well, thanks very much for having me. I think that today has been a great day so far for democracy. I voted yesterday, my wife voted today, and I'm sure people in India who have the opportunity to vote in a democracy feel the same pride that I do at people being able to go and make their choices. And with relatively few exceptions, things have gone smoothly. I think that the tweet that you indicate on X or about Trump saying that there's some sort of massive fraud in Pennsylvania, which has been completely debunked, as were his claims that he actually won in 2020, debunked by Republicans as well as Democratic judges. I think that that shows that he's really worried about Pennsylvania, and he's laying the groundwork to try to contest what is happening there. I don't think that he would have put out that kind of tweet unless if he didn't think that Kamala was in the lead in Pennsylvania. So I think it's been a great day so far, but the hard work is going to begin after the votes are in. It'll be hard work in defense of democracy. Either way, I think that if Kamala, Vice President Harris wins, then you're going to see more of the same thing that you saw in 2020.
But Mr. Vickery, you know, the average American, they seem more skeptical about how Kamala Harris has fared recently. Do you agree and do you echo the same skepticism as the average American when it comes to, let's say, policy issues of the economy?
Well, I think that former President Trump has been very adept at painting a completely untrue picture of what's going on with the U.S. economy. The fact is, we came out of a pandemic in not good shape, but in much better shape than if we hadn't spent money to keep people employed. There was some inflation involved, and that's a problem, but that is coming down. But the picture he's been able to paint for people is that they were much better off under him. The statistics do not bear that out, but he's been able to, through his demagoguery, to convince many people that somehow the United States is in complete decline economically. The facts don't bear that out, either in job growth, in GDP growth, and as I say, inflation is coming under control, but it is the inflation that people see that that is at the grocery store, if you will, and he's been able to use a demagogue's approach to that to convince people that they were much better off. The fact is, we've come in for a soft landing when many economists were saying that we were headed for a certain recession.
Yes.
And so I think President Biden and Vice President Harris ought to get some credit for it, but that is an issue here. But as you've seen,
we'll have to wait and see if that translates into a victory for Kamala Harris by the end of tonight. Let's also rope in Mr. Johnston at the moment. The average American does seem more skeptical about Kamala Harris and how she's fared as per latest polls, but here she is running against a twice impeached, historically unpopular, convicted felon former president, and it's still a toss-up. But at the moment, Trump is projected to win Kentucky and Indiana, and Kamala Harris is projected to win Vermont. These are both reliable gains for both candidates, right?
Yes, there are really only 7 states that are in play, possibly an 8th, Iowa, and they will decide the election. California and New York are going to go for Kamala Harris. Louisiana and Mississippi are going to go for Donald Trump. And at the moment, we have no idea the outcome. Now, Donald is out there already, as I predicted months ago he would be, asserting that there's cheating going on already, asserting that they've had to have heavy police presence in Philadelphia, which is completely untrue. And the American TV networks have been running live shots showing that that's not the case. But that's how Donald, whom I've covered since 1988, when I wrote way back then he might become president of the United States in 1988, that's how he operates. He is a con artist. He's a lifelong career criminal, and he has conned millions and millions of Americans into believing he's a business genius. He's not. He's a cash extractor of enterprises that he gets his hands on with borrowed money, none of his own money. He squeezes them until there's nothing left, and he drops them. And he has a long history of cheating governments, cheating workers, investors, colleagues, that I've documented from public records all across his career. And of course, he's now a convicted felon, 34 felonies, and he's facing 3 more criminal trials in the near future. 3 weeks from today, I expect that he will be sentenced to prison in New York State for the first 34 of the crimes he's been convicted of.
Well, we'll wait and see how this plays out. Let's also rope in Shikha Hamilton at the moment, who's a gun control expert and an activist with United Against Gun Violence. Shikha, it's no surprise Trump has actually come out and said that the NRA is his best friend. Are you hopeful of how tonight plays out?
I'm very hopeful tonight. It's a great day in America. Anytime there's an election, free and fair election in America, it's exciting. This has been a groundbreaking election by Kamala Harris, leading the way. I have volunteered on elections for 41 years. And I have never seen the kind of ground game that I'm seeing in the past several months. Volunteers are out there knocking on doors, thousands of doors in the swing states. And it's going to be an exciting night.
Do you believe Kamala Harris actually has something different to offer than Joe Biden?
Kamala Harris, well, I think, of course, she's a different human, but she comes with a perspective. She's the daughter of immigrant parents, first of all. So she comes with a different perspective. And the fact that she is a woman of color representing the South Asian community as well as the Black community. And she has been ingrained in both communities. And that is America. America is made up of people that are children of immigrants. I mean, we're all immigrants, right? But she has lived the American dream. She grew up middle class. Nothing was handed to her. Her mother worked hard as a single mother. This is what the American dream is truly about. And that's what she represents.
Right.
I love Joe Biden, so I'm not taking anything away from him. She's just bringing hope and inspiration for Americans and Indian Americans. I'm an Indian American. My daughter is half Black, half Indian, like Kamala Harris. So she inspires her. And the next generation is ready for this president.
In fact, many say the United States is ready for its first female president. Mr. Johnston, how have we seen the dynamic between education, class, and politics play out this election in the United States?
Well, the Democrats have done, who are traditionally the party of unions and the working class, have done a very poor job for about 50 years of appealing to union members. Now, some of this is wrapped in a race. There are a number of unions in the United States, particularly construction unions, that work very hard to make sure only white people, especially white men, are able to get jobs in those fields. And because they're unionized, they pay well. So they are, in fact, seen by many people as the party of the educated class. One of the interesting things about the support for Trump is that his policies literally take money from those in the bottom 90% of the income stream and redistribute them to people at the very, very top, the billionaire and centimillionaire class. I wrote a series of best-selling books about how this was going on before Trump came along, but he then ramped this up, and he promises to ramp it up more. So it's very surprising. Now, at every rally, Donald says, we love the poorly educated. And part of the reason for that is poorly educated people are treated badly in America, in the news media, in advertising, and everywhere else. So he's trying to get them to feel that he cares for them. But his history is one of cheating workers, abusing workers. He said recently that he hates a number of work rules. And in fact, in one of the earlier campaigns, he said Americans are paid too much money. Wages are too high. Sort of the thing you might expect from a boss who doesn't care about his employees.
Well, thank you so much for joining us on NDTV. It's going to be a long, exciting, thrilling night ahead. 7 swing states will decide whether Kamala Harris or Donald Trump is sworn in as the next president of the United States in January. And their polling averages are all within the margin of error. But in an election this close, small constituencies really matter. I must inform you that at the moment, CNN has projected that Kentucky and Indiana is going to Donald Trump, and Vermont is going to Harris. Harris stands at 46% favorability as opposed to Donald Trump's 42%. Non-stop coverage carries on NDTV right after this very short break.
Did you know Experian is the UK's most trusted credit score? You can download the app for free. Easy peasy. Before you do credit, do Experian first.
Bingo lovers, it's time for a close encounter with Bingo Aliens. Visit bingoaliens.com/bingo for a cosmic range of bingo games. 75-ball bingo, even 90-ball bingo. All from a galaxy far away, direct to you. Taking bingo to another dimension at bingoaliens.com/bingo.
Foodies, Gourmet Nature's Creations Gravy Heart is a meal made with heart. Outside a soft steam cooked mousse and inside a delicious gravy heart. With surprises like these, it's natural to get so many hearts. Gourmet Nature's Creations Gravy Heart by Purina. Buy now.
At Direct Line, we know that for multi-property landlords, sometimes the tiniest of things can turn into way bigger problems. From niggly contract issues to keeping up with ever-changing legislation. That's why Direct Line's landlord insurance offers a 24/7 legal helpline as standard. Because a call with someone could help to make the hairiest of problems feel that little bit smoother. Search Direct Line Landlord Insurance. We're on it.
Want more from your energy than just bills? Whoa, what? With Ovo Beyond, you can save money on bills every month, get exclusive access to gigs, unlock a free boiler service, and bank greener rewards for tomorrow too. Nice. Switch to Ovo and get our free energy savings account and unlock savings and discounts worth up to £1,000. Search Ovo Beyond.
The war in Ukraine continues to put children in terrible danger. Homes, schools and hospitals have been destroyed, energy supplies cut off. Families are still displaced from their homes, now facing a harsh winter without warm clothes, fuel and shelter. To find out how you can help, search UNICEF Ukraine online or text WINTER to 84901. In my years reporting on war, I've seen its impact on children, but I've seen how UNICEF makes a difference day by day. UNICEF is providing warm clothes, boots and blankets to keep children and babies warm, and generators and fuel to help power vital services. £32 could help provide warm winter clothes for a baby or young child. Search UNICEF Ukraine or text WINTER to 84901 and help make a difference for children today.
There's something new in Lottoland. Get set for a welcome offer. Stake £20 on Big Bass Bonanza and get 100 free spins at Lottoland Casino.
However your home uses the internet, EE has the perfect Wi-Fi for you. We've got full fiber for only $29.99 a month. Perfect for binging all your favorite shows with no upfront costs. Keep your whole home seamlessly connected with the UK's most reliable broadband technology. Powered by BT. And if that's still not enough, you can upgrade to Wi-Fi 7, where everything you love works better. No wonder families choose EE. Search EE Broadband Deals.
What's wrong with the car? It's okay, lads. I'm with the AA. Ah? Bombay mix.
Because the AA has more expert patrols across the country, you'll be back on the road in no time. No wonder more people choose the AA. Join today.
It's gonna take a lot to drag me away from you. There's nothing that 100 men or more could ever do. Down in Africa.
Luckily, Liam got 0% interest for 21 months on all the wedding surprises he bought with his Barclay card. What you buy is your business. Helping you pay less interest is ours. Barclay card. Make money work for you.
Good evening, America, and good morning, India. Well, you brace yourself because it's going to be a long night ahead if you're tuning in from America to watch us. Currently, Kentucky and Indiana, according to early projections, have been called for Donald Trump. And for Kamala Harris, it's blue Vermont as we speak. Early projections are trickling in. The world's eyes are fixed on a moment where the United States is going to pick its next president. We have a whole lot lined up for you. Let's begin with the headlines we're tracking currently. The first leads are in. CNN projects Trump wins in Indiana and Kentucky. Meanwhile, Kamala Harris is projected to win Vermont. Republicans lead Democrats in a Senate race. AP says Republicans are leading Democrats in this race. Kamala Harris's team and allies are concerned about Georgia after Georgia has been plagued by non-credible bomb threats throughout the day that have appeared to accelerate as the state approaches poll closing. In fact, some polling locations have extended voting hours in Georgia as a result of these threats, while voting has been suspended at 5 voting locations. Well, the first polls are closing in Indiana and Kentucky as the United States enters the final hours of voting in this election. Voters say democracy and the economy are the most important issues informing how they voted in the United States election as per early exit polls. Now, at first blush, the opening round of exit polls aren't too surprising, as analysts have pointed out on NDTV as well. The economy, the state of democracy, abortion rights are the top issues for American voters this year, in keeping with what we've been seeing from public opinion surveys this month and for months. If you dig a bit deeper, however, the sharp partisan divides in the electorate also makes themselves very apparent, because for Republicans, immigration joined the economy near the top of their concerns. Abortion also an issue that has also been huge for Democrats. For those on the left, abortion rights along with democracy were much more important. It's a bit of a surprise that the economy wasn't a dominant top issue for American voters, given how much of the political debate has centered around the post-pandemic spike in inflation. But as has been pointed out by surveys, economic growth is not the top priority for an average American. This could be because there were some Republicans who were worried about the state of American democracy, and they amped up the voice on that, albeit for very different reasons than Democrats. But of course, as I highlight these exit polls and what they indicate, what they suggest, you must remember this is just rough data and should not be treated as gospel, because the real verdict in this election is yet to come. In terms of the latest updates, I must inform you that the Associated Press has called its first states, and there are thus far no surprises. Kamala Harris became the latest Democrat to win Vermont, a party stronghold. Donald Trump has actually won Indiana and Kentucky as per CNN projections, both red states. The AP has not yet called swing states of Georgia or Virginia and South Carolina. I must warn you, don't let these early results on election night fool you. Delayed absentee ballot counts in key swing states could tilt how the presidential race ultimately shakes out. In terms of a flashback, in 2020, in case you remember, states like Georgia and Michigan turned from red to blue on the electoral map as more ballots were received and counted, prompting Donald Trump and his allies to claim the results were rigged and the election stolen. And that brings me to the latest as far as Donald Trump is concerned, because he has said that there has been massive cheating as far as Philadelphia is concerned. Now, that claim, the county commissioner has said, is unsubstantiated. In fact, I must also inform you that Donald Trump has now claimed West Virginia in terms of the current state of play. For further clarity, let's go across to my colleague Benji Hire, who joins us. Benji, what is happening at the moment? Kentucky and Indiana have been called as per CNN projections for Trump. Kamala Harris going with blue Vermont, and now Donald Trump claiming a few more states?
Well, I think ultimately, in terms of, where we predict this race is going to be won and lost, much of the attention currently is on Georgia. The polls closing in the past half an hour, and because of the way that state is counted, and because of the enormous turnout before Election Day, either in person or mail-in, we're expected to get a pretty comprehensive understanding of which way Georgia is trending in the next half an hour or so. The state's Secretary of State saying that 75% of all of Georgia's votes would have been declared by 8 p.m. local time. That's in about 25 minutes. And that will give us, I think, the first real indication, the first real picture as to the way this race is heading. The other states you mentioned, Kentucky, Indiana, South Carolina, expectedly going the Republican way. Those aren't one of the half dozen or so battleground states where it is seen this election could be won or lost. And so we are effectively awaiting the early vote results to come from Georgia, one of those states which is seen as too close to call, having been solidly Republican, solidly red for many, many years, but in the past couple of years becoming a real battleground, and the Democrats hoping that if they can pull off a win there, that really that opens up the path to the White House for Vice President Kamala Harris.
Also, Benji, have polls closed in battleground North Carolina as well as Ohio and West Virginia?
Well, the polls have closed, I can tell you, in a handful of states. They include, as I mentioned before, Georgia, as well as Indiana, Kentucky, South Carolina, Virginia and Vermont. So we are awaiting the closure of polls further west in the country, such as Ohio, as you said, or such as the battleground states of Michigan and Wisconsin in the Midwest. Those two, as well as Pennsylvania, the so-called blue wall that Joe Biden managed to win and take some states off Donald Trump that the former president won in 2016. And again, that is seen as the chance, really, for Kamala Harris to enforce herself as a prospective president if she can seal those three blue wall Rust Belt states and then potentially take a state like Georgia in America's South. Then that really does open up her path. Early numbers that are coming in from Georgia at the moment slightly favouring the former president Donald Trump, the Republican candidate, but we're really in the very early days here. You know, in effect, if we are starting a hike as the metaphor, we are just beginning on the trail, tying up our shoelaces, filling up our water bottles. We have a long way to go until we come over the crest of that mountain, and that picture as to the way this contest is going is only really going to be painted as we get more comprehensive results, especially from Georgia, and then we await for those polls to close in places like Pennsylvania and Michigan.
Well, Benji, thanks so much for joining us with that update. We'll, of course, revert to you for regular updates as I go across to the White House Bureau Chief from Voice of America, Patsy Widakuswara, who's at the Kamala Harris HQ at the moment, I'm told. Patsy, election officials around the U.S. are now reporting turnouts at near record highs.
Yes, that's correct. I mean, this has been anticipated, this kind of enthusiasm and excitement from both camps, both Harris and Trump. I mean, in their last press briefing, the campaign manager, Jen O'Malley, saying that they're really proud of the grassroots and also the turnout effort. And Vice President Kamala Harris herself did not give up. I mean, even on the car ride here, she's still on call with radio stations, getting people out to vote. There's still time in some states. And also, even just earlier today at the Democratic National Committee in Washington, D.C., Kamala Harris will stop taking urging people to vote.
Right. As we just work on fixing that audio line with my colleague Patsy, I'd just like to inform you that voting has just wrapped up in 6 states, including Georgia, one of the swing states, expected to determine the winner of the presidential election. But at the moment, election officials across the United States are reporting turnouts at record high levels. Polls are closing in battleground North Carolina, meanwhile, as well as Ohio and West Virginia. In fact, early CNN projections have actually attributed West Virginia to Donald Trump. Trump is winning the red states, Kentucky and Indiana, as we speak, while Kamala Harris is picking up blue Vermont. That's the latest update we can share with you. In fact, AP has also called Kentucky and Indiana for Donald Trump and Vermont for Kamala Harris. Natasha Israni is with us from Philadelphia at the moment. Natasha, what's the sentiment on ground zero in Philadelphia? As per early projections, we have been able to tell that Kentucky, Indiana, and now West Virginia have been called for Donald Trump, while blue Vermont goes to Kamala Harris.
Well, I can talk about the mood here in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. First and foremost, there has been no official reports of any voter fraud, as Donald Trump has been claiming on Truth Social. So that has not been verified at all. So let's start with that. When it comes to Pennsylvania, the polls are still open at 7:40 p.m. here. They close at 8 p.m. and even 8 p.m. any voter in line is allowed to vote till he or she gets into the polling station. So it's a long night to go, and there's a very good chance that Pennsylvania is actually not called tonight at all, and it goes early into the morning tomorrow or even a few days later. And that's because Pennsylvania has some very strict rules around ballot counting, and in fact mail-in ballots, which are a huge percentage, could only be counted starting today, which is November 5th in the morning at 7 a.m. and not before that. Pennsylvania also asked that its counting agencies continue counting overnight. So yes, this night is going to be long, and I do want to get some perspective from a young voter here also voting for the first time. Tell us what it was like to cast your first vote, and who did you vote for?
So first time to cast vote for was Kamala Harris, because Trump is loose on crime from day one. And I have found no official documents, no official come outs on the cheating of on Philadelphia, in the state of Philadelphia, overall Pennsylvania. I have not found any misleading or cheating.
So you just don't find him credible on certain sources. But what were the issues that were important to you when you voted for Kamala Harris?
So when I voted for Kamala Harris, the issues were just for the middle class, because she is from middle class, so she will support the middle class. While Trump is from a millionaire, he's from a rich family, so he'll only support the rich family. He'll not support the middle class.
So our young guest here talking about what his concerns were, the middle class, and he feels that Kamala Harris is going to be more supportive on that. We have been speaking to a lot of young students also here at Temple University in Philadelphia, and the youth vote is crucial in the swing state. So we're going to see how it plays out between the youth vote, women, suburban voters, a very, very important state, especially as now the countdown has begun to closing of the polls.
In fact, Gen Z is expected to play a huge role in this election. Thanks so much for joining us with that update from Philadelphia, Natasha. Let me also introduce the mayor of New Jersey, who joins us on NDTV at the moment. Neena Singh is with us on the broadcast. Thank you so much, ma'am, for joining us. Many political watchers assert that the argument that Kamala Harris has underperformed, it actually tends to rest on two different charges, that Kamala Harris has played it too safe and that she has played it too vague. Keeping this in mind, ma'am, who do you think is going to emerge as the winner tonight? Who do you think is going to be moving into the White House?
First of all, thank you so much for having me on your show. And I want to be clear, I'm the first Indian American woman mayor in New Jersey, but not the whole mayor of New Jersey. I'm the mayor of Montgomery Township in New Jersey. But to your question, I am hoping that people vote their values. And, we've been presented with two different visions for America. One, which is looking forward as to what we can do, what our future should be, and one more about what happened in the past and, how someone was not treated well and scare tactics. And as an immigrant woman in this country where I have been welcomed warmly, and I am, as I mentioned, the first Indian American woman mayor, where people have voted for me, people are willing to look at an immigrant and see what they bring to the table. From the other side, from Donald Trump, it is immigrants go back. So between you and me, I'm hoping that people vote their values and we are able to have President Kamala Devi Harris as our president.
Ms. Singh, how many years have you spent in the United States?
I've been here now 26 years.
That's a long time. So you're actually a perfect voice to actually ask the national environment as far as your country is concerned in general. Is it one with all the ingredients for a Republican landslide and a conservative cultural rebuke?
There could be. I mean, there is definitely concerns if you're saying there would be a landslide for Trump. that could be the reason for that could be that some people are not happy with the economy, though they forget that the economy was very different under Trump and we went into trillions of debt. So yes, I mean, there are people who are coming into this and thinking, oh, I'm a legal immigrant and, he's against illegal immigrant. But my question to everybody is, if you see me on the street, are you going to ask me, am I a legal immigrant or am I an illegal immigrant?
Right.
If there is any feeling in people that immigrants go back, I could be one of those people. People will say, hey, you go back. You're an immigrant here. You don't need to be in this country. So I just want to ask people to think ahead, think of our children, think of our future, and vote what you feel is good for our future generations is what I'm asking people to vote for.
Right, Ms. Singh, do stay on with us as I also rope in Carolyn Prasuti at the moment, who joins us with a live update. Carolyn, where are you? What's the sentiment on ground zero? Is Kamala Harris going to be moving into the White House soon, or does it look like Donald Trump moves back?
We don't know that yet, but I can tell you where I am, at least. I can tell you that I'm inside the Palm Beach County Convention Hall. You can hear the music behind me. Occasionally, they turn up Fox News and they repeat the results in some of the states, and you'll hear a yell come up from the crowd. Otherwise, they're just kind of milling about. There's plenty of wine here, plenty of food here, lots of people in red, white, and blue, lots of people with MAGA hats, which is Make America Great Again. And let me tell you a little bit about these hats. On the back of the hat, it says 45-47. And what that means is, Donald Trump was president. He was the 45th president, but now they're predicting 47. So the hats were already made up for tonight, and these people are definitely expecting to have a victory party here tonight at this election watch party.
Well, we'll keep reverting to you for regular updates from the Trump headquarters at this watch party as you enjoy some wine and in that red iconic Donald Trump color of yours. Thanks so much for joining us with that update.
Sure.
Ms. Singh,
my pleasure.
Back to you. Take us through some of Kamala Harris and Donald Trump's moves that have appeared to paid off this election, starting with Kamala Harris.
I think with Kamala Harris, I think what she did, can I talk about what she did well? And then we can go into what did not work. Yeah, so what she did well is I feel that she had a very short window, if you know, to get into it and get out there and get people on her side. She was really good. She hit the ground running. She was out there. She was meeting people. She was talking about her vision, right? And that's something that I feel that the young people have really taken on. Maybe where she didn't get to really shine was maybe the economy and the border, right? That was something that I feel that should have been done a little more. But again, she's been doing this not for the whole election cycle or since last 2 years as Donald Trump. So I give her that grace. And I think she's done amazing for a candidate who handled the baton so late in the game.
Right.
And to come and do what she's doing. And then I guess you want to know what Donald Trump has done well. And I guess with him, his MAGA movement, Make America Great Again, though I do have a lot of people who say it's not a MAGA movement, it's a MAVA movement, and it's Make America White Again. And that's what a lot of people say to me. And I'm like, I hope that's not what it means. And the thing that he's not done well, in my opinion, is he should have grown his tent. I mean, I have friends who are Republicans, and I'm totally, to me, I'm a leader in my town for all Republicans and all Democrats and all independents. My job is to make sure that once I'm elected, I am the representative for all people. And I don't see that from him. And I think that's that's what's missing in his campaign.
Very interesting, Ms. Singh, because I was reading a survey that said if all women were to step out and vote, then Kamala Harris would emerge as the winner. But if working class white male were, let's say, stepping out, then Donald Trump would be the clear winner. Help us understand what's going on here. Is there a clear divide as far as the political playground is concerned? And is there a clear divide in terms of class as well?
I would say more so with the women vote, because as you must have heard, Roe v. versus Wade was struck down because of the 3 judges, Supreme Court judges, Donald Trump was able to get in. Right, he appointed them, and we have heard horror stories. I am in New Jersey, which, the tri-state area is pretty progressive. Whereas there are people we hear from Kentucky, from Texas, who are, losing, people have lost their life. Young women wanting to get an abortion are going across, the state borders. So yes, I think women have realized that their body, their decision, and nobody should come after their health care. To me, having a baby is health care. So I think that is the thing when I look at what Kamala Harris, that white, the women vote, not the white vote, the women vote. That's why Kamala Harris is doing so well over there. For the other, if you were asking for Donald Trump and the blue collar vote, I guess he does. I mean, people forget he's a billionaire. It's amazing. I talk to people and they're like, he's one of us, Nina. And I'm like, he's a billionaire. He's not one of us. That I'm a middle class woman. To me, Kamala has lived the life that I am living. I wouldn't say I've lived the life that Donald Trump is living, but I guess he appeals to people because they feel he's like one of us. So I guess he's really good at portraying that.
Well, Ms. Singh, thank you so much for joining us and helping us understand the battleground better. We will revert to you for regular updates. For now, we're taking a very quick break. Back in a moment with much more. Don't go anywhere.
It's time to set sail with the Lucky Admiral. Visit LuckyAdmiral.com and discover loads of online and mobile casino games like blackjack, poker, roulette, slots, bingo, and more. The Lucky Admiral really has searched the 7 seas to bring a treasure trove of great games, all in one place. Visit today and you could win up to 500 free spins on 9 pots of gold. Simply make your first deposit and spin the mega reel for your chance to win. Bonuses ahoy with up to 500 free spins at LuckyAdmiral.com.
Family life. It's made of ups and downs, and those little moments. But should the unthinkable happen to you? Life insurance from Legal & General can help look after monthly bills, the roof over their heads, childcare costs, and most importantly, your family. Because no one protects more families in the UK than us. Premiums start from £5 a month and they never rise. Plus there's a £120 gift card after you apply. Legal & General. Ensure life goes on.
Breaking news. Whoa. Duracell, the official partner of Williams Racing.
It's time for a power boost. I gotta train harder. Whoa! Power boost activated. Try Duracell Optima for the next level of power.
Babe, can you do my Duracell? What's happened? Are you actually kidding me?
You weren't supposed to burn the potatoes. Or invite everyone round at 2.
Until 3 o'clock, right?
We weren't supposed to do presents this year.
I can't even be mad at you now, can I?
And you weren't supposed to take everyone home again. We weren't supposed to have our Beth either. We weren't supposed to get married. And you weren't supposed to be here. But you are, thanks to the best gift you ever got. And mine is still having you.
To help us fund life-saving research, donate £5, £10 or £20, text 5, 10 or 20 to 70499.
I've been thinking, I want to plan my funeral so it feels more like a celebration. My parents always said I was born dancing. I just love it. Bhangra, disco, even line dancing. So when my time comes, I want to have music, dancing, the lot.
With over 150 years' experience, you can count on Co-op Funeral Care to help you pre-plan the funeral you want. To find out more, visit Co-op Funeral Care or give us a call.
Did you know Experian is the UK's most trusted credit score? You can download the app for free. Easy peasy. Before you do credit, do Experian first.
A rare and beautiful tiger, trapped by vicious steel cables, slowly dying. Another victim of wildlife crime. Adopt a better future for tigers with WWF and help stop their painful deaths. We'll send you an exciting adoption pack with a cuddly toy. Call 0800 035 7100 or search WWF Tiger and adopt a tiger for just £3 a month. We must do all we can to keep them alive.
Visit bingoaliens.com/bingo for a cosmic range of bingo games, taking bingo to another dimension at bingoaliens.com/bingo.
We all love a bargain, like these flatmates who switched to Vodafone and are now paying less for their full fibre broadband, which means they can still stream 2 shows at the same time. But for less. Still gaming with mates, but for less. He's behind you. Reliable full fibre broadband for less from Vodafone.
At Direct Line, we know that for multi-property landlords, sometimes the tiniest of things can turn into way bigger problems. From niggly contract issues to keeping up with ever-changing legislation. That's why Direct Line's landlord insurance offers a 24/7 legal helpline as standard. Because a call with someone could help to make the hairiest of problems feel that little bit smoother. Search Direct Line Landlord Insurance. We're on it.
Experian could improve your credit score. Boost it instantly by up to 101 points for free. Experian, the UK's most trusted credit score. You can download the app while I bop to this jam. So if you need to improve your credit score, do Experian first.
There's something new in Lottoland. Get Set Casino. Hold tight, your casino favorites are here. Blackjack, roulette, plus live dealers. Here's the big draw slots, Big Bass Bonanza, Wolf Gold, and exclusive games like Lottoland Bonanza. Get set for a welcome offer. Stake £20 on Big Bass Bonanza and get 100 free spins. The fun comes out of the blue at Lottoland Casino.
This Christmas, give joyful memories with Photobox. Turn your favourite moments into something special. Gift joy. Unwrap smiles with Photobox. Create now with 50% off everything in our early Black Friday event.
Well, the first election results are coming in and Kamala Harris and Donald Trump are winning reliable states. Kamala Harris and Trump each need at least 270 electoral votes to win the presidency. The battleground states of Georgia, Arizona, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, North Carolina and Nevada are seen as pivotal to their path to victory. But the main event tonight is the race for the White House, but it's by no means the only election we're watching. The next biggest prize up for grabs tonight is the control of the Senate, the upper house in America's Congress. In fact, about a third of the Senate seats are being contested. At the moment, the Democrats are in charge of the Senate, but only by the slimmest of margins, and polls indicate that that could well change this evening if you're tuning in from America, and this morning if you're watching us in India. There's a long way to go, but Republicans have snagged at least one new seat, with now projections coming in for West Virginia. Actually, West Virginia has now been given to Trump, with Kentucky and Indiana. As far as Vermont is concerned, early CNN projections have called Vermont for Kamala Harris. At the moment, we have Steve Herman joining us from Florida, where we're told the Democrats are expected to suffer a big blow. But before we get to that, let's take you through the headlines. Well, the first polls are closing in Indiana and Kentucky as the United States enters the final hours of voting in the election. Voters say democracy and the economy are the most important issues. The first leads are in. CNN projects Trump wins in Indiana and Kentucky. Meanwhile, there are more bomb threats at Georgia polling sites. Polls are closing in battleground North Carolina as well as Ohio and West Virginia. Early indications show Democrats are leading in Ohio. The lead widens for Democrats in battleground in North Carolina, with Republicans continuing to lead in swing state Georgia. Welcome to NDTV's non-stop extensive coverage regarding the U.S. election. Steve Herman now joining us from Florida at the moment. Steve, we're told the Democrats are having a bit of a bad time as far as Florida is concerned.
Florida is really tough for Democrats. I expect Donald Trump will win Florida. Right. There are only two of the key states where the polls have closed so far, and that would be North Carolina and Georgia. And I expect close races in both those places.
Right. We also have with us Brad Bannon at the moment. I'd just like to take a quick comment from Brad. Right. I apologize sincerely. Let's go across to Steve Herman at the moment from Florida. Steve, as Brad has just mentioned, the Democrats are expected to have a bit of a tough time in Florida. How are things looking for the Republicans as we speak?
Yes, I'm actually in Georgia, one of the swing states that's north of Florida. And what I can tell you here is this is really the state to watch. Donald Trump is expected to win Florida. Another southern state, North Carolina, is obviously one to watch, where you've indicated that early returns, Kamala Harris, the Democrat, is ahead there. And here in Georgia, in this county that I'm in, Gwinnett County, they had a record turnout today, as they did in a number of other counties in this state. And this is one of those 7 key swing states. And we should be getting some results from here, from this county, at any moment. And this county is really considered a bellwether one to watch, which could indicate which way things go in the entire state of Georgia tonight.
So, right. Steve, in terms of the things that have worked, in terms of the moves specifically that have worked for Donald Trump and Kamala Harris this time around, beginning with Trump, what has really worked for him?
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
In terms of the moves, the electoral moves and the policy agenda, the issues, what has really worked for Kamala Harris and Trump respectively this time around?
Well, I think one thing that a lot of Democrat and Republican and independent voters agree on is that they're very concerned about the economy, especially inflation. Although numbers have looked pretty good during the Biden administration on paper, a lot of people say they have not been feeling any relief from the inflation. And of course, the reproductive rights issue, abortion, that is a big one, especially for female voters. And the Democrats have hope that that is what really could make the difference for them in a number, if not all, of these 7 swing states. And then when you talk about Democrats and Republicans and independents again, they'll also both tell you that they feel democracy is at stake with this election.
Right. In fact, that has also been highlighted through exit polls. Brad, come in here. In terms of the exit polls, immigration, the state of the economy, and the fact that democracy is not heading in the right direction has been highlighted. What would you attribute the decline to?
Yeah, one of the things that surprised me about the results of the national exit day polls is that there's much concern among American voters about the state of democracy as there is about the state of the economy. And usually the economy is the dominant issue. And I think many Americans, this is a theme that Kamala Harris pushed very hard especially during the later parts of the campaign. And I think it's a good sign that so many Americans are concerned about the state of democracy, because I feel many American voters feel it would be, we could have a dangerous slide into fascism if Donald Trump serves a second term. So I think the big two issues so far in the exit polls are the state of democracy and the state of the economy. And I think that, again, it's so much concern about the state of democracy. I think that's an advantage for Harris, while voters concerned about the economy are probably going to vote for Trump. Most Americans say in the exit polls that at least half of the public thinks that they're worse off economically than they were 4 years ago under Donald Trump. And that the economy is a big issue for Trump, but the concern about democracy is a big positive for Vice President Harris.
Right. Also, Brad, Americans have been vocal about how they're really upset with the direction the country is heading in. Would you then say Republicans actually have an edge in terms of most of the issues that are seen to matter to voters, specifically the economy and immigration?
I think immigration, what the earlier exit polls suggest is again, the two big issues are democracy and the economy. Way back in the pack, there's a middling level of concern about abortion and immigration. People who are concerned about abortion are going to vote heavily for Vice President, and people who are concerned about immigration are going to vote big time for Donald Trump. Reproductive rights is a big issue for the Vice President, and immigration is a place where voters fault the Biden-Harris administration, and those voters are going to go big time for Donald Trump, I believe. But again, the two big issues that have been revealed in tonight's exit polls are the economy and the state of democracy.
Right, and in terms of Kamala Harris's focus on personal freedoms, right, before I get to that, I must inform our viewers that CNN has projected that Trump is winning Missouri and also Trump is winning Oklahoma. These are as per CNN's early projections. So besides Kentucky, Indiana, West Virginia, now we have CNN calling Missouri and Oklahoma for Donald Trump. Reverting to Kamala Harris's focus on personal freedoms, Brad, predominantly abortion rights and democracy, has it given her a significant boost among Democratic partisans and moderates and a clear edge over the Republicans?
Yes, it has. Again, this honestly surprised me when I first saw the exit polls an hour ago. I had no idea that there would be this much concern about democracy as voters indicated today. And that's a big advantage for Harris. Abortion's a big advantage for Harris. The two issues that work for Trump are the economy, because people worry about the state of the economy under Joe Biden, and immigration, which is a big plus for the Republican Party. And if you watch Donald Trump's speeches during the campaign, he talks about the immigration problems in every appearance he's made in the last few months. And he probably has a decisive advantage on issue in the same way that Harris has a decisive issue on reproductive rights and abortion.
Well, thanks so much, Brad, for helping us make sense of what's going on as far as Battleground US is concerned. We also have with us Jennifer, who's a Republican strategist, joining us on the broadcast at the moment. Jennifer, there's been a lot of talk about